cases of gatherings made versus having all these little pockets. I'm going to be leading the camera.
I thought she was gonna. Oh wait, I'm getting mixed up. Hold on.
What do you get mixed up? So much.
Which meeting has which attendance coming? Aloha ahiahi kako. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to our Maui Planning Commission meeting of Tuesday, October 8th, 2024, specifically in regard to the South Maui Community Plan. Ms. Takakura, could you do roll call, please?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Okay, so let's take attendance in person. Commissioner Lindsay,
Aloha mai kako. Nice to see you all today. I am excited for a productive, efficient day.
Chair Thayer,
Yes, manifest, speak it into existence. Yes, I'm here.
thank you, and welcome, Commissioner Ward.
Thank you. I am here present as well.
Okay, and then online we have Commissioner Hippolito present.
Hello, everyone. I'm in Kahului in my office alone.
Thank you. Vice Chair Thompson.
Thank
Oh, Vice
Yeah,
Chair, I think. Oh, there you go. There, I can hear you.
Aloha and good afternoon.
Are you? Is anyone with you, Vice Chair?
Negative. I'm at home, Kahana, and might be visited by my water guy. That's it.
You and Commissioner Dekos.
Hello, everyone. I am in my home office in Maui alone.
And Commissioner Kealoha is absent today. Thank you.
Thank you. Somebody online, I think, has something scratchy going on. We're getting some interference in the sound coming into the room. So if you're not a commission member, please make sure you have your mic muted. Okay, so on our agenda today, we have section 3, the growth framework, and I believe we will have a presentation from the department. So for everybody in the gallery and online, anybody waiting to testify, just letting you know, we'll take the presentation from the department first, and then we'll go into public testimony and then questions from the commission. So commissioners, any questions that come to mind as you hear the presentation and public testimony, please write those down and we can address them afterwards.
Today we are going to go over the updated community plan designations. The land use layers start at the state land use district, and then you have the Maui Island Plan growth boundaries, the community plan designations, and then county zoning districts. It's important to remember that we are at the community plan designation layer and not the county zoning districts. So it starts from the least specific and then gets more specific as the layers go down. Zoning districts regulate land use intensity by specifying the dimensions and location of development on a parcel of land. It's important to keep in mind, again, that we are operating at the community plan designations and not zoning. The goal of the updated community plan designations is to foster complete, equitable, and healthy communities that meet the needs of residents. It, in addition, preserves the existing character of neighborhoods and unique places and provide the opportunity for a range of housing types. The community plan designations in the plan give a general description, the development patterns that are expected, the example imagery, and typical street types. There are 2 residential community plan designations, the rural residential and the residential designation. The rural residential designation aims to preserve rural character and serve as a transition between agriculture and more urban development. Large lot subdivisions and family farms characterize these areas. Maui Meadows in South Maui as an example of a rural residential area. Next, we have the residential designations. The goal of this designation is to encourage a range of housing types to provide mixed neighborhoods and affordability. Parks, schools, small-scale neighborhood serving commercial uses are also included. It should also include pedestrian, bike, and bus connections to promote mobility, equity, and health. Then we have the mixed-use designations. The mixed-use designations start from the smallest and most rural, which would be the rural village. Then there's the neighborhood center, the small town center, and the most intense is the transit-oriented corridor. The rural village is intended to preserve the character of rural towns. Rural villages are relatively small and include a mix of commercial services, public, quasi-public uses that support nearby communities, and may include limited residential. This designation was removed from the plan by CPAC because there are no rural villages in South Maui. The neighborhood center is similar to rural village, but located in a more urban or suburban setting. Neighborhood centers provide services that support nearby residential neighborhoods with pedestrian-oriented commercial nodes. An example of this would be where Ulalani Shave Ice is in South Maui. Small town center is, again, similar to neighborhood center. However, small town center covers a larger area and serves more neighborhoods. With all of the mixed uses designations, parks, schools, safe walking, biking, and bus service are an important part of the mix. Downtown Kihei would be an example of a mixed use neighborhood or a small town center. And then there's the transit-oriented corridor. This is the most dense and intense of the mixed-use designations. It is intended to create transit-friendly areas with higher density commercial and employment, light industrial and residential uses, characterized by pedestrian-friendly activity centers, vibrant street life, and multimodal corridors. This one was a designation that was not used in South Maui because of the density and intensity. It is important to note that transit-oriented corridor can also have light industrial use included. So this is the South Maui mixed-use designations. We have this is the neighborhood center and the small town center. And this is the Wailea Gateway, is an area that would be an example of transit-oriented corridor, but it is designated small town center in the plan. Resort hotel is typically medium to high density with a broad range of uses, primarily intended to serve visitors. And then the employment center are intended to encourage a range of employment uses like light manufacturing, processing and business incubators, and include amenities that serve employees such as restaurants, retail, and live work spaces. This is the equivalent of a light industrial designation in the existing plans and can have live work units. The industrial is intended to permit the intense industrial and manufacturing activities that do not belong close to residential uses. And then there's the special purpose district is intended for uses that are so unique no other designation can apply. This was mainly thought of for airports, but this designation is used in South Maui for the area where Palauea Cultural Reserve is, because the zoning does not really exactly correlate with any of the designations. And then there's the public, quasi-public, is intended to provide facilities for public use or benefit and is typically for planned or existing large-scale government, nonprofit, or educational uses. And then park is intended to preserve and manage lands for recreational activities, for example, beach parks and neighborhood parks. Golf courses and related amenities are also included. And then open space is intended to preserve and manage lands for Native Hawaiian traditional and customary uses while protecting sensitive ecological resources, scenic resources, drainage ways, and green belts. Open space areas support natural processes such as flood management and erosion control. And then agriculture promotes agriculture development, protects agriculture resources, and supports the island's agriculture character, economy, and lifestyle. State conservation recognizes lands within the state conservation Conservation District and protects wilderness areas, beaches, watersheds, and other sensitive areas. This is a designation that just reflects what is there. It can't really be changed unless the state decides to do it. And I have a little test to give you guys.
Yeah, let's do it.
Hopefully you're paying attention to that.
We don't get tested enough on this.
No, I'm pretty sure that's what it is. Let's see. All right, getting comfortable with the updated community plan designations. So starting off with 12 of the 15 community plan designations. Which designation focuses on planned or existing large-scale government, nonprofit, or educational uses?
We need a buzzer.
Say I can't participate.
I'll give everybody else a chance. I think I know the answer.
Government, nonprofit, or educational? Public, quasi-public.
Yes.
And then which 3 designations allow manufacturing and light industrial? This one's tricky because I might not have covered it thoroughly.
Mm. I'm going to say industrial is one.
Good job.
And transit-oriented corridor, if I remember the other.
Employment center.
Yes, you got the third one. Good job. And which designation allows noxious industrial and manufacturing uses that might not be compatible with other uses?
I'm going to call on somebody online.
Decos?
Brady Bunch.
Industrial.
Good job. Next, which 2 designations allow light industrial because it is compatible with other uses like retail, restaurants, and residential? Thompson?
Unmute for the transient corridor and the employment center.
Good job. Which designations include transit and multimodal transportation options?
Commissioner Hipolito, I think you're next.
I would say TOC.
Good. Anyone else?
Second chance.
He said that. He said TOC.
All of these designations include transit and multimodal transportation options.
Trick question.
Was a trick question. Now we are replacing industrial with agriculture and replacing public, quasi-public with open space. Which designation is intended to preserve and manage lands for recreational activities, including golf courses and beach parks?
Commissioner Lindsay.
Open space.
Recreation.
Park is intended to preserve and manage lands for recreation. Which designation is intended to preserve and manage lands for Native Hawaiian customary uses and to protect sensitive ecological resources?
Open space.
Open space. And which designation establishes, protects, and allows for appropriate infill of low to moderate density residential neighborhoods with limited commercial uses?
Commissioner Ward.
Low to moderate density residential uses.
So small town center.
Residential.
Small town.
It could be in small town as well. So these designations do kind of overlap a little bit. They're not as specific as the existing designations. So which designation is medium to high density and includes a mix of uses that primarily serve visitors?
Let's go online again. Commissioner Jikos.
Resort.
Yes, resort hotel primarily serves visitors. And which designations encourage a similar mix of residential, commercial, and public uses like schools and parks? This is multiple designations.
Vice Chair Thompson.
Would that be our neighborhood center
That's one of them, yes.
and our small town center, depending on the town?
Are there any others you'd like to identify?
Rural village.
Yes. We have rural village, neighborhood center, small town center, and transit-oriented corridor all encourage a similar mix of residential, commercial, and public uses.
Good job, Vice Chair.
Good job. And which designation creates transit-friendly areas by encouraging higher density residential and higher density commercial?
See,
Good job, Hippolito.
Yes. Well done.
Which three designations are intended to preserve Maui's small town character?
Vice Chair Lindsay.
Small town center.
In the mic.
Small town center. Rural village, maybe.
There's three of them.
Neighborhood center.
Got all three of them. Good job. And which designation is appropriate for a small grocery store, church, or park around four corners of an intersection to serve the surrounding rural area?
Commissioner Ward.
Small town center.
The rural area,
So that would be rural residential.
rural village.
That's a trick question because it's not in South Maui.
Yeah, we don't have those.
Which designation encourages small scale buildings, with mom and pop shops that are walkable from a nearby neighborhood?
Neighborhood center.
Yes. Neighborhood center. And then which designation is intended to preserve the character of Maui's smaller towns and allow for development of medium to density mixed use centers that serve multiple neighborhoods?
Small town center.
Yes. And which designation is for uses that are so unique no other designation can apply?
First one to raise their hand gets a gold star.
Hippolyta.
Well, Hippolito, very nice.
Gold stars.
I'll give it a shot. SPD.
Yes, good job. Special purpose district.
Gold
for
star.
uses
Well done.
that are so unique no other designation can apply. And which designations allow agriculture uses and farming? Ag for sure.
Ag.
Yep.
Agriculture and rural residential. And which is intended to preserve and protect agriculture resources?
Agriculture.
Yes. We're almost there. Key takeaways. Residential establishes, protects, and allows for appropriate infill of low to moderate density residential neighborhoods with limited commercial uses. Transit-oriented corridors creates transit-friendly areas by encouraging higher density residential and higher density commercial. Rural village, neighborhood center, and small town centers are intended to preserve Maui's small town character. And special purpose district is for uses that are so unique no other designation can apply. And mahalo for participating. You guys are done with your test. You guys all got a gold star.
Yes. Go team.
I stop sharing.
Okay. Is that all for your presentation tonight?
Results, we can go to testimony.
Okay. All right. Well, let us go to testimony. Remind everyone that everybody has 3 minutes to testify.
So we'll start on in person. So first person I have signed up is Brian Banks and Kara Burkholz.
I like the test. Now I can go train all my neighbors. Aloha. My name is Brian Banks. I'm the president of Grand Champions in Wailea. I'm a 25-year full-time resident of Maui. This is home for me. I'm here on behalf of our board and our 188 owners. We kindly request that the plan designation of Grand Champions changed from residential to the more accurate resort hotel in the South Maui Community Plan. Our request is based on the following rationale. Number one, resort hotel designation reflects more accurately the original intent and continuous use of Grand Champions since its inception in 1990. The original declaration and bylaws accepted and recorded by Maui County Land Court and the way the units were advertised and sold all emphasize that Grand Champions was developed to offer transient vacation rentals. Grand Champions units were continuously utilized as short-term rentals since they were built 34 years ago. Number two, Grand Champions is located in the middle of Wailea Resort area, surrounded by hotels, shopping centers, tennis courts, and golf courses. Grand Champions' neighbors on Wailea Ike Place and Wailea Ike Drive are recently developed hotels, 4 shopping centers, a tennis club, and golf courses. This is not a residential area. Currently, Grand Champions offering short-term rentals is in perfect harmony with the surrounding properties. Number 3, Grand Champions can contribute to the local economy and support local families better as a property that offers short-term rentals.
What's that?
We need housing, but we also need jobs and tax revenues. Almost all the revenues of these STRs stay in the local economy, paying for taxes and providing wages for local families. Number 4, our request is in line with the statements and recommendations of our mayor. In previous planning commission meetings, our mayor stated that properties that operate primarily as short-term rentals should request resort hotel designation in the community plan.
30 seconds remaining.
He said, if it walks like a duck and quacks like a duck, it's a duck. Therefore, here we are, suggesting that changing the plan designation of Grand Champions from residential to resort hotel would be in line with the mayor's statements and direction. Thank you for giving us an opportunity to provide input to the South Maui Community Plan. Thank you for your consideration, and thank you for all you do for us. I provided some maps showing,
Time.
okay, so time is time.
We got your written testimony that you're checking on. Okay. And our commissioners online got copies of those? Okay. Okay, so for the commissioners coming in remotely, we will, Gino is working on scanning the maps that he handed out to us and he'll email them to you. Any questions from the commission? Okay, seeing none, mahalo for your testimony.
Thank you.
Next person is Kara. And then we'll go on to online testimonies.
Thank you. Aloha, my name is Kara Burkholz, and I'm a 14-year full-time Kihei resident, and I'm the board president at the Palms at Wailea Association of Apartment Owners, and I go by Kara and Kara, so you're good. And mahalo for the opportunity to testify. On behalf of the Palms at Wailea, I would like to request a change to the sub-area 4 Wailea land use map in section 3 of the draft South Maui Community Plan for our property. Our property is located at 3200 Wailea Alanui Drive, just up the road from Ke'awakapu Beach. We have 23 two-story white buildings with turquoise accent roofs, and it's right at the four-way stop of Wailea Alanui and Okalani Drive, if that helps situate it for you. Currently, the draft of the map shows Palms at Wailea as a residential property. We're requesting the land use to be changed to resort hotel to accurately reflect the continuous legal usage of a resort property since its original development. I have 3 points to back up our request. The first one is the original documents filed with and accepted by both state and county in 1989 demonstrate the original intent of Palms at Wailea to allow for short-term vacation rentals. And I've submitted the exact sections in my written testimony that for today's meeting. The second point is Outrigger Resort and Hotels purchased a commercial front desk directly from the developer. Since the property originally opened, Outrigger has continuously operated a hotel-style front desk, providing advance and walk-up bookings and guest services for the property. And then the third one is that Maui County Code identifies Wailea as a planned resort destination area and states that Wailea is intended for to be a major tourist area. Our property is an integral part of Wailea Resort. We complement the other resort housing in Wailea, and like hotels, and our units and guests contribute greatly to the local businesses and support local jobs. We understand that the land use designations of the plan are intended to be used when reviewing future zoning changes, so it's important for the plan to accurately reflect the current and longstanding use of our property. Mahalo for the opportunity to testify, and I'm happy to provide you with any additional information you may need. And would like to point to my written testimony also. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony.
Yeah.
Any questions from the commission? Seeing none, thank you again.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll go online. First person is Lucien Dene, followed by Robin Knox, and then Lynn Peabody.
Aloha, Commissioners. Welcome, Commissioner Ward. Thank you for your service on this matter. My name is Lucienne Dene. I served for 2.5 years on the General Plan Advisory Committee and went over all these same areas that you folks are considering today. I would like to make a couple of comments. I signed up and said I wanted to speak to 3.2, but it's actually section 3.3. The recommendation for the Pi'ilani Promenade to go back and have the small town center designation for the parcels along Pi'ilani Highway. I just think that you folks who have probably never set foot on this site need to realize that this is one of the most flood-prone areas, Mauka, in Maui. And to think that this is the new small town Kihei, I just think we're making a mistake not to allow it to be residential and allow greater buffers. When you have Kulana Hakoi Stream, it starts way up Kula side, and it has multiple branches, and then they all collapse into 2 branches that come down, one edging this property and one through this property. It is more like a delta. When you walk there, there's all this wash silt from higher up. It's really not a place for commercial development. It should be residential development that can fit the contours of the land. Moving on to the SLR parcels that were designated for open space in the CPAC review. I just think it's very short-sighted to say, oh, this isn't the place to take places that function as wetlands and storage areas during flooding and designate them as open space. You just heard property owners say our use of our property is actually more for vacation rentals. It should be hotel. I mean, what we should do is look at these lands. If they're holding water and being used for retention of water, they shouldn't remain residential. They should be classified as open space because that's one of the activities that happens under open space. And it's very short-sighted not to take the long view here and just say, well, we've got to stick with the current community plan designation. I would ask the folks on the commission to request if there is a corp counsel opinion that has been given, and when it was given, that would say that it's inappropriate to suggest different designations in a community plan. I know that when I was on the GPAC, we suggested that the Mauka lands stay in agriculture, even though the community plan said that they were a project district that was developable. I think time has proven that
you
that was a
wrap up your
good
testimony,
suggestion.
please?
Thank you. I am complete.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from the commission? Commissioner Dicos.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Ms. Dene. Can you clarify? I kind of missed, you mentioned the SLR properties should be kept open space and not residential?
Yes, so there's a number of parcels that were identified very conscientiously during the CPAC review process. And if you look at the comparative maps, there are all those little green squares on the department's map when it shows the CPAC version. Their recommendation is no, leave them all as residential, make them yellow. But this designation process is to upgrade what we know about properties. If we know that they should be hotel, we should make them hotel. If we know that they are having a conservation purpose, they should be made open space. And it is done in community plans is my point. And in the GPAC, we recommended those designations for large areas, and they were passed by the council. This is done, even though the community plan, the old community plan and the new community plan may disagree.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Dene. Thank you, Chair.
Any other questions from the commission? I have a question. I want to make sure I heard you correctly. I think when you were talking about Pilani Promenade, you said it's a highly flood-prone area, so residential should go there?
Well, residential, you can adjust more. Residential with the wider boundaries around the flood drainage areas, the main areas that carry the flood waters, makes sense. That's why CPAC recommended it. When you start having commercial, you just have a lot more paved surfaces. I'm sorry, and then you have to deal with all of that. And of course, we're told that we have low impact design and it solves everything. But I think we all know it doesn't really solve everything. So residential makes more sense for all four sections of that parcel, residential and the large buffers that were suggested.
Okay, thank you.
Mahalo.
Seeing no further questions from the commission, thank you again for your testimony.
Okay, next person is Robin Knox, followed by Lynn Peabody, and then Bo Yuan.
Aloha, my name's Robin Knox. I would like to ask the planning department that if you're going to propose such significant recommendations to the planning commission, that you would hold an informational meeting in the community to go over them, because there is a lot in this. And it's hard when you don't put a legend for the color coding and you don't put the TMK maps on there. And somehow we're supposed to know. You actually have to go look at a bunch of different documents to make sense of it. So that's my request. And that being said, Pilani Promenade, I think our community has spoken loudly on this multiple times in multiple venues. We want residential there. We don't need a shopping center. We have shopping centers that have empty retail space. We need housing. And I'll just confirm what Ms. Dene said about commercial development tends to have a lot more impervious surface and contribute more to flooding. The open space buffers around both that project and everywhere that they're on the map need to be maintained. Those are for the health and safety of our community. Those are to mitigate flooding. They also provide habitat. They also provide space for healthful recreation. So they're really important to the health and safety of our community. Those bordering the highway especially, because they protect the residential areas from the environmental hazards and noise and so forth from the highways. With regard to the undeveloped parcels in the sea level rise exposure area, this is the most important part to remain in open space. Most of those parcels, I didn't get a chance to review them all because it's quite a bit. But the ones that I did look at, and most of them appear to be in the wetland overlay, which is, you know, a zoning overlay for us to really examine the land use here and see if it should not be to restore and protect those wetlands that remain. Two of them in particular, the first two that I looked at, one is the Eva wetland and the other is La Ie wetland. They are both significant drainage ways for most of developed Kihei. The Eva wetland, everything above Waipuilani drains through that wetland. The Lipoa one, it's everything over in the Lipoa area. They're both major drainages. You do not want to build there. We need the natural infrastructure. Please leave it in open space.
Thank you for your testimony. Any questions for the testifier? Seeing none, thank you again.
Aloha.
Next person is Lynn Peabody, followed by Bo Yuan, and then Stephen Thiel.
Thank you very much, and aloha. I am Lynn Peabody, and I'm currently serving as Vice President on the Wailea Ikahi Board of Directors. I am requesting the property designation of Wailea Ikahi in Section 3.2 of the proposed South Maui Community Plan be changed from residential to resort hotel. This change is appropriate based on the history and development of Wailea Ikahi within the Wailea Resort. The Wailea Resort began development in 1971. It was conceived as an integrated residential resort community. The concept was called a planned unit development, which provided future owners with a wide range of housing diversity. Today, Wailea Resort is one of the premier resort communities on Maui and includes homes, condominiums, hotels, shopping centers, tennis center, and golf courses. Wailea Ikahi, as the name implies, was the first condominium property developed in the Wailea Resort. Developed in 3 phases, the complex was created by 1976, and the 3 phases were merged together to provide a cohesive village for its owners and guests, allowing them to take advantage of the Wailea Resort location and benefits. Bordered by Okalani Drive, Wailea Alanui, and Kiavakapu Beach, Wailea Ikahi serves as one of the primary gateways into the Wailea Resort. Ever since Ikahi was permitted and built through today, county zoning for the entire property has allowed temporary residences and pool pavilion use consistent with hotel-type rentals. Constructed under planned development ordinances, sections of the property are zoned R1, with the rest zoned hotel. Documents signed by the State Real Estate Commission recognize the zoning under which all of Ikahi was intended to and does operate. I quote from those documents, "The apartments shall at all times be used as permanent or temporary residences or as hotel rooms and for no other purposes." According to the community plan, the resort hotel community plan designation is intended to provide for existing and future visitor-oriented development in appropriate areas. This definition is totally consistent with the original development of and continuing purpose of Wailea Ikahi. Similarly, the community plan definition of sub-area 4 Wailea indicates it was planned as a resort community, and this legacy remains.
30 seconds.
Wailea Ikahi has been an important element in Wailea Resort since both were developed, and as such, its property designation should be reflected as resort hotel. Thank you very much for providing the opportunity to submit this testimony, and certainly thank you all for your continuing hard work.
Thank you for your testimony. Any questions from the commission? Seeing none, mahalo again.
Mahalo.
Next person is Bo Yuan, followed by Stephen Thiel, and then Harry Lake.
Aloha, everyone. My name is Bo. I'm an owner at Maui Kamaoli. I kindly request to change the designation of Maui Kamaoli from the residential to the resort hotel in the South Maui Community Plan Section 3.2. Our rationale is below. So the first reason is the resort hotel designation more accurately reflects the original intent and the continued use of the vacation rental at Maui Kamaoli since its inception in 1989. The original declaration and bylaw accepted and recorded by Maui County emphasized that Maui Kamaoli was developed to offer the vacation rental, and the property has been advertised and sold as a vacation rental property since its inception, and also for the past 35 years. It has been consistently utilized as short-term rental, aligned with its initial purpose. Second reason is that Maui Kamaoli is located within the Wailea sensor designated place, an area known for its luxury resorts and high-end accommodation. Maui Kamaoli is an oceanfront property adjacent to the Kamaoli Beach Park 3 and the Kihei Boat Landing. Our neighbors include resort hotels such as Malakai Maui Resort and the Day Inn by Windham Maui Oceanfront. Maui Kamaoli has 2 pools, 2 hot tub, 2 tennis courts, and large tropical landscaping, and a front desk that tracks registration and visitor parking. Maui Kamaoli operates more like a resort hotel than the residential area. Maui Kamaoli's resort-style amenities align with its surrounding area that tourism-focused character. The resort hotel designation is therefore more accurate given the context and the character of the surrounding property. The third reason is that our request is aligned with Mayor's recent recommendation in the Planning Commission meeting, where he emphasized that if the property already operating primarily as short-term rental, we should ask for a resort hotel designation in the community plan. With over 95% of the units at Maui Kamaoli currently used as short-term rental, it's clear that making the resort hotel designation for Maui Kamaoli is the most fitting and accurate choice. Number 4, Maui Kamaoli contributes significantly to the local economy and support local family better as a property to offer the short-term rental, which collect and pay tax and provide jobs for the local family. In conclusion, changing designation of Maui Kamaoli from residential to resort hotel would formalize the reality of the current use as short-term rental, and also support local economy, provide jobs, and preserve the character of surrounding tourism-focused area. I kindly ask Maui Planning Commission to update the designation of Maui Kamaoli to resort hotel. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to provide input, and thank you for your consideration. Mahalo.
Thank you for your testimony. Any questions from the commission? I have one question. Are you on the board or are you a resident? Are you speaking for the whole thing or just as an individual owner?
I'm a kind of lead the current rezoning committee at Maui Kamaoli, and our board is considering to take over our committee and moving forward with our direction. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions from the commission? Okay, seeing none, thank you again for your testimony.
Thank you. Bye.
Next person would be Stephen Thiel, followed by Harry Lake, and then Randy Wagner.
Aloha, can you hear me and see me?
Yes, please go ahead.
Mahalo. Aloha, my name is Stephen Thiel. I own a condominium unit at Kamaole Sands, and I am chair of an owner's rezoning committee at Kamaole Sands. Before I begin my testimony, I'd like to acknowledge that I'm speaking to you from the traditional lands of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, and the Wendat peoples, and that I recognize the enduring presence of all First Nations, Métis, and the Inuit people, and honor all Indigenous peoples from around the world. As a descendant of ancestors displaced from their homeland, I am grateful to enjoy and care for the lands that I own on mainland North America and here in Maui. I spoke before this commission 6 weeks ago, asking that it consider redesignating Kamaole Sands under Section 3 of the South Maui Community Plan to resort hotel, to properly reflect that Kamaole Sands was built as a condominium resort and has always been used as a condominium hotel for tourists. I promised you written testimony, which has now been filed. The written testimony sets out the facts underpinning the use of Kama'ole Sands as a condominium resort or condotel. Relevant excerpts from legal documents, other relevant material, and a collection of submissions made by scores of owners from Kama'ole Sands are attached for the Commission's convenience. The last time I appeared, Commissioner Lindsay asked me to address where Kama'ole Sands is situated in relation to other properties within the overall community plan. In a nutshell, Kama'ole Sands is sandwiched among other properties that are designated as resort hotel on the South Maui Community Plan. To the north, south, and southwest are a hodgepodge of resort hotel zone properties because this is an area conducive to a designated tourist area. The physical layout of Kama'ole Sands on its sprawling 15 acres of land matches the layout that planners identify on the community plan as resort hotel. As I previously testified, Kama'ole Sands' guest registration desk is operated by Castle Resorts and Hotels. It has 37 employees on site. Castle Resorts and Hotels also operates the guest registration desk at the Maui Banyan, which is designated resort hotel on the community plan. Accordingly, we ask, when considering all the facts described in the written testimony, my previous oral testimony, and the other testimony provided to you by the owners at
30 seconds.
Sands, and examining the entire layout at Kama'ole Sands, it is time to do the right thing and redesignate Kama'ole Sands on the community plan as resort hotel. Mahalo and much aloha to all of you.
Thank you for your testimony. Any questions from the commission? Okay, seeing none, mahalo again.
Mahalo.
Next testifier is Harry Lake, followed by Randy Wagner, and then Johan Lau.
Can the commissioner hear me?
Yeah, please go ahead.
Perfect, perfect. Hello, and thank you for the opportunity to testify today on behalf of Pi'ilani Promenade or Kala'ulu. We appreciate the intent of the planning department's recommendation and concept. I actually really agree with it. Our concern is just consistency with the current LUC approval that interveners have signed off on, the county has signed off, and the state has signed off on. Some of the interveners have actually testified or on the testifying list today. The small town center, I think, accomplishes the goals that is being sought after, which is a mixture of uses throughout the property. We want to increase walkability to the newly delivered Kalani Hako'i High School. When people talk about sort of improving walkability in neighborhoods, it's funny how it's not being promoted throughout all neighborhoods, but more just the Makai side of Pi'ilani. We believe that the folks Mauka and Pi'ilani also deserve walkable communities that people can walk to, in particular adjacent to the high school. But again, we do appreciate, I think Cal Chip Chase might be able to articulate some of the concerns related to combining the residential and the small town center uses in the current LUC approval. Although we agree that we would like a mixture of uses, and quite frankly, we want to be able to respond to the call for residential housing throughout the overall master plan. And we believe that small town center accomplishes that. Wanted to address a little bit about flooding. Just to be clear, the property is not in a flood zone, and we're taking proper precautions to make sure that there's no impacts downstream of us. And we're going to actually do some engineering through Unamori Engineering to actually enhance the current conditions of the property as it stands right now. And then third, we heard a comment about pushing residential up against the highway and pushing the commercial components of the approved master plan away from the highway. And we would recommend that we would actually try to buffer the residential uses away from the highway, as is most commonly sort of suggested in sort of planning processes, in order to prevent
30 seconds.
the density to go lower, to go away from higher traffic areas. And so I think that's the conclusion of my testimony. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Mahalo for your testimony. Any questions from the commission? Seeing none, mahalo again.
Next testifier is Randy Wagner, followed by Johan Lau, and then Cal Chip Chase.
Can you hear me?
Yes, please go ahead.
Aloha, commissioners. Thank you for this opportunity. My name's Randy Wagner, and I'm testifying for the Kihei Community Association. I'm the chair of the KCA Design Review Committee, and I'm a 35-year plus resident of Central Kihei. I'd like to testify that the Planning Department proposal regarding the Piilani Promenade parcel is going to hurt Kihei. We believe that that should be residential. It should not be small town center. We already have a small town center. We do not want competition for that. We want to keep Kihei centralized. We do not want commercial on the highway. That will just make it like any other suburban highway on the mainland. We see the value of residential with some neighborhood support services, but the small town center allows for extensive commercial development, as was described in the Planning Commission introductory little lesson. They used Kihei downtown as an example. There's already more commercial development planned and being implemented right now on Pi'ikea in Central Kihei, which we believe is appropriate and desirable because of the central location. We want to keep Kihei from becoming sprawl. Also, we believe that the expanded conservation area needs to be maintained around those gulches. It's obvious the Makai areas and the ocean are threatened with excessive flooding, and those areas can be developed as pedestrian bikeways and trails that run Makai and Mauka and connect the neighborhoods that will be created. There is ample area for residential development. Why do we need to minimize the conservation areas as the planning department has proposed? So that's one issue. Another issue is the Kihei Mauka. KCA has supported the vision of Kihei Mauka. However, unless all the policies that were developed are maintained with the intention that they were developed with, we would withdraw that support. One I want to mention particularly is that we want to see the 2-lane collector road connect directly from Lipoa Street to the Veterans Highway prior to any occupancy of that area. Kihei has been lucky to avoid disaster thus far due to inadequate egress from the area. We live with congestion. However, in the event of a fire or other critical disaster, the resulting damage and loss of life would be catastrophic, similar to what we've seen in Lahaina. So we will withdraw support of the entire project if those policies are not upheld. And I submitted written testimony with possible text for all the points that were made. So please refer to that when you're working on that. I address them each individually, and especially the affordable housing too. We want to see that as a primarily affordable housing development.
Thank you for your testimony. Any questions for the testifier?
I also want to say I agree with Lucienne and Robin Knox.
I do have a follow-up question about Piilani Promenade. You said you see the value of a neighborhood with a little bit of commercial. So would you be open to some degree of mixed use in there?
Yeah, we would probably be open to some neighborhood centers, but not the small town center. Small town center is like Central Kihei. We do not want small town center up there. There's no need for that. It will just make a depression in Central Kihei. Already there's tons of vacancies. There's no need for another small town center. Piilani Promenade would fit into that category, and we fought against it. We don't want big box stores. We don't want huge parking lots. It's just not appropriate. We're trying to make Kihei be a town with a center and appropriate neighborhoods.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions from the commission? Okay, seeing none, mahalo again.
Mahalo.
Okay, next person is Johan Lau, followed by Cal Chipchase, and then Paul Hood.
Aloha, Johan Lau testifying on behalf of myself. And first, I want to say something that I keep meaning to, but I keep forgetting. So one big thing for you guys to remember with the community plan is that most or the vast majority of SMA, I guess, permits are not coming to you guys. Those SMA minors and those exemptions are handled by the current division, and they rely on the community plan as one of their tools to be looking at. So when folks talk about, case by case basis, or we need to encourage rather than require, et cetera, it's based on, or I guess the argument is based on you guys will get to review everything anyway, but that is not the case for the vast majority of things. So always think of the planner who's, like an individual not making a lot of money, making decisions, and how you can help them. As far as the maps, which is what I really wanted to testify on 3.3, I was surprised by the planning department recommendations, particularly that they said land use designations is not an appropriate tool to prevent development on parcels that may already have entitlements, but that's a non sequitur. Because if they have entitlements, then they're grandfathered, and theoretically the community plan wouldn't apply anyway. So it doesn't really make sense. But overall, I have a problem with the removal of a lot of that open space, and I did submit written with drone imagery and stuff like that and maps. Protecting those gulches is really important for people downstream, and that is a central and really important function of government, is protecting people from other people, and especially protecting life and, to a lesser extent, property. And so in places like Pi'ilani Promenade or Kihei Mauka, those buffers are really important for reducing flooding risk downstream. And already, that's all open space right now. Flooding's already really bad, and we've all seen the pictures, and it's easy to forget after a couple of years, but these really big rain events create horrible flooding. Mud goes everywhere, super expensive to clean up. It damages the roads. This is a major impact to people downstream. So I guess a question I would suggest asking the planning department is whether they considered impacts to people downstream in their recommendations. Another thing is the wetlands overlay is a thing, and the planning department has that. We can all look at that, and somehow they removed a lot of those wetlands from open space, put it back into residential. So another question, did they consider wetlands? And should wetlands be protected, or should they just all be turned into market rate, expensive, super expensive housing? I mean, overall, please review all this stuff very carefully, and don't just rubber stamp whatever the planning department says. Mahalo.
Thank you for your testimony. Any questions from the commission? Commissioner Dicos.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Mr. Lowell, for your testimony. Can you clarify, you talked about entitlements. So can you just explain that more? What trumps what? So if you have existing parcels, I don't know if this is the same thing, but if they're zoned residential, but now they're indicated as open space in the community plan, like what happens to those parcels?
Well, so it's basically that hierarchy that Karen showed. And it's really different things. But as far as the entitlements, and I actually looked this up to make sure I wasn't confused. Entitlements means you have your permits, so you can start building.
Okay.
So it's like if they're in a position where they can start building, the community plan is not going to affect them anyway, according to the planning department.
Okay, so it's ready to build, not necessarily what you purchased,
Right.
the zoning of your purchased property. It's if you're ready to build and you're entitled to build.
Yes,
Okay.
but one thing is that a lot of the time permits expire because they can't get funding or whatever. and then they'll come back for permits again. So then the community plan would apply. So it's kind of like a circular logic thing that the planning department's using. Like if we can apply open space in places where it makes sense, we should. We shouldn't worry about, whether they have entitlement. If they have entitlements, they have entitlements. So.
Got it. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Any other questions from the commission? Okay, seeing none, mahalo for your testimony.
Okay, next person is Cal Chip Chase, followed by Paul Hood, and then to be followed by Dick Mayer.
Good afternoon, everyone. Cal Chip Chase. Appreciate the time that you've taken so far and the time you'll continue to spend. I want to pick up where Mr. Commissioner Dekos's question left off. It's not accurate that entitlements vest upon the issuance of building permits. They vest upon the issuance of the last discretionary approval. So if no discretionary approval or further discretionary approval is required, the rights have vested. That's the it's a Pacific Standard Life case, the Kauai Nuku'uli'i decision from the Hawaii Supreme Court. And so if you take a property that is entitled because it has a residential designation and doesn't need further discretionary approvals, and you down designate it in the community plan, you've taken that property without compensation. That's what happens in those instances. Turning to the specific items that I wanted to comment on today, and I know this is the beginning of a longer review of the maps. We won't finish today, I'm sure, but I do support the department's suggested changes to the sea level rise exposure area properties. If you actually dig into those TMKs, you'll see that the CPAC designated the entire property as open space, even if the sea level rise exposure area only touched a toe of it, even if the property was Mauka of a public road, even if the property had substantial upslope portions. In other words, the CPAC used a blunt instrument where precision is required. And so the department's comments are entirely correct. It also aligns the community plan with the shoreline rules and avoids the taking of property as I just discussed. Turning to Promenade, the Pi'ilani Promenade, which received a lot of comment. Like Harry Lake, I appreciate the department's changes. I think they're a step in the right direction. They still leave us with the fundamental problem that the alignment would not exist between the land use commission approval, the community plan designation, and the zoning. As the department notes in its own report, the property that is owned by Honolulu in the Promenade area attempted to do residential. That was determined to be inappropriate or not allowed under the land use commission zoning with our designation without a mixed use. And so if that property is designated residential in the community plan, it means nothing will be built on it. It cannot be developed. There will be no housing. Folks either know that when they advocate for residential or they were mistaken, but that is the reality of it. To assure consistency for the entire promenade area, it needs to all be small town center. That will facilitate the mixed use development that is required by the land use commission and therefore allow the development. My last comment is on Wailea 670. The original designation in the existing community plan was for project district. This CPAC wanted to move away from that and provide specific designations. We're okay with that, but the specific designations in the draft map are not consistent with this commission's phase 2 approval. The map for the Wailea 670 should be amended to look exactly like the phase 2 map that was designated here. And we would submit that the changes we have proposed accomplish that. I'm happy to go into detail on where there are inconsistencies and the changes that we would like on 670, but I put it into my testimony. If the commission adopts what I put in, then it would reflect the phase 2 approval. Thank you.
Hello? Thank you for your testimony. There's somebody on the line who we can hear your phone call. Please make sure you're muted if you are online. Okay. Any questions for the testifier? Commissioner Dekos.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Mr. Chip Chase. Can you clarify the Pi'ilani Promenade? You said if it's kept as residential, nothing will be built. Can you just explain that again, please?
Happy to. So as the department notes in its report, requesting or recommending the changes to that in the other areas, it notes that because of the Land Use Commission's approval limiting the kinds of uses that may be made in that area to light industrial, essentially, a residential designation or residential use would not be appropriate under that designation. And it specifically identifies the Honolulu property and the planned or formerly planned residential project for that area. The small town center designation allows a mix of uses, which we believe would be consistent with the Land Use Commission's designation, in that it would allow us to fulfill the requirement under the Land Use Commission's designation to develop light industrial, but would allow us to mix those uses with residential uses to ensure that residential uses are brought to that area to better activate the Mauka area, particularly close to the high school. If the designation is residential, purely residential, it won't allow those mixed uses, those light industrial uses that are essential or critical under the Land Use Commission's approval. So we will end up in a situation where those three levels of approval don't align. State land use, county planning, county zoning will no longer be in alignment, and therefore nothing will be allowed to be developed in that area.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chair.
You're welcome.
Commissioner Lindsay.
Along those lines, there's not a way to remedy that through another way to remedy that other than
There's not, no, Commissioner, there's not another way to remedy that. There was a settlement agreement reached with some of the folks who testified today that prohibits any amendment to the Land Use Commission order without their consent. Even if they consented, then you're going back through the Land Use Commission process, which at best is uncertain. And so the way to remedy it, the way to get housing to that area, as everybody seems to want to do, is to designate the entire area as small town center so that mixed use may be allowed.
Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Any further questions from the commission? Okay, seeing, I guess just to fully clarify this for everybody, can you go through what is the state land use designation, the zoning, and the current community plan designation for Pilani Promenade?
I'd be happy to. So the state land use designation is urban, but it's urban approving a particular site plan and use. In proceedings before the State Land Use Commission by folks who were opposing a proposed residential development in that area, the project was limited to that approved by the Land Use Commission at the time that it got its state land use district boundary amendment. So the project needs to track that site plan and those uses. The current zoning is light industrial, and the current community plan designation, I believe, is light industrial as well. So the change here that we're looking at is to update it to bring it more current with the mixed use. I think that's entirely appropriate. That would facilitate the development of residential uses in that area because we could align the different plan, zoning, and state land use through the mixed use development. If a single element is allowed, just purely residential, we would lose that alignment, as the planning department notes in its report.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome, Chair.
Any further questions? Okay, seeing none, mahalo again for your testimony.
Thank you.
Okay, next person is Paul Hood, to be followed by Dick Mayer and Mike Moran.
Good afternoon. My name is Dr. Paul Hood. I'm testifying on my own behalf as a McKenna landowner. I've got a PhD and a lifetime career in computational fluid dynamics. My testimony is on the sea level rise component of the 3.2 feet SLR-XA. When I look at computer forecasts, I pose two rhetorical questions. The first is how plausible is the model on which the predictions are based? The second is how probable are the predicted results? It's basic bad policy and not science to base predictions on implausible climate cases. The 2017 Hawaii Sea Level Rise and Vulnerability Report relied on United Nations Report AR5 from 2014, and the predictions were based on a particular climate case, RCP 8.5. This was a high emissions or coal economy case, which required as its basis a 5-fold increase in coal use by the year 2100, an amount larger than the estimated world coal reserves. Additionally, the plausibility of the RCP 8.5 climate case can be challenged by comparing climate model greenhouse gas emissions from this case to emissions measured from 2005 onwards, actual greenhouse gas emissions. RCP 8.5 failed to meet this test over the past 20 years with overstated greenhouse gases. Currently, there's broad agreement that a moderate emissions case, RCP 4.5, or its companion, SSP 2.45, are plausible following the trajectory of greenhouse gas emissions since 2005. These cases both account for the exhaustible nature of fossil fuels and are reflective of the current policies and commitments towards net zero. It's my recommendation that the county should base SLR-XA predictions on climate models RCP 4.5 or similarly SSP 2-4.5 These predict 20.8 to 23 inches sea level rise. And they follow the predictions by the IEA. The second area is to provide some probability for the different emission scenarios. The UN cases do not provide guidance to planners on how likely 3.2 feet is, or 20 feet for that matter. So there's no useful risk-based planning which can be justified. In the written testimony, I explain how that's done. And my final recommendation is to defer the redesignation of open space changes until these steps are taken.
Mahalo for your testimony. Any questions for the testifier? Commissioner, Vice Chair Thompson.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I've read your testimony there, but I did conclude is how much sea rise, by your calculations, what's our sea rise to 2100?
Yes, so if you use these cases which follow the greenhouse gas emissions we've observed, it would be between 20.8 inches to 23.6 inches. So that's 60 centimeters, okay, 23.6 inches. That as opposed to the current case, which is carried by the state, of 3.2 feet. So it's about half. And it has a huge impact on those properties bordering the sea, and also on any mitigation you care to design.
Any further questions?
No, thank you very much.
Commissioner Lindsay?
Hi, I'm trying to wrap my head around this information that you just gave us. Can you say again what model we should be using other than the SLR-XA, if that's what you're saying?
Yes, there's two cases which actually track the current greenhouse gas emissions over the last 20 years. And those are RCP 4.5 or SSP 2-4.5. And those two cases really only differ after 2050 in basically the recapture of carbon dioxide. Up to 2050, they're the same. And on the verbal testimony, I show figure 1, and you can see on that figure the 8.5 scenario, which has a huge amount of CO2 emissions, and you have the blue line, which is my recommendation, which is SSP 2-4.5, which tracks the IEA short-range forecast. I'm sorry, it's quite a technical discussion, and there's no way of gilding the lily, I'm afraid. It's basically, there's a lot of analysis goes into these cases. And, there's about 1,100 cases which the UN have come up with. So there's a broad swathe of climate cases, but 8.5 is the one which the state has latched onto, and I think it's basically double the gives rise to double the sea level rise, which we would expect, and it gives science a bad name.
I think I understand now. Thank you for your testimony.
You're welcome.
Commissioner Dicos.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Mr. Hood, Dr. Hood. Are you familiar with the newest report from the Honolulu Climate Action Committee and their new models?
Yes, I did see that. And in fact, it was basically continuing on with the 8.5 scenario, and even worse, it made the claim that Hawaii was actually worse off than the rest of the world. If you take a bathtub model, they were claiming that Hawaii was actually worse off. And if you look at the NOAA report, it says, in fact, Hawaii is 5 to 10 centimeters below the rest of the world. It's just the way, so there's basically an error in that second report on two fronts. One is it's taken 8.5 still as a base case, and neglected the proper sea level rises. So the NOAA report gives a sea level rise of 60 centimeters in the year 2100. And I think that's a solid number. You've got a good government body behind it.
Dr. Hood, I don't mean to interrupt. I'm not going to argue on the math. I don't have that level of expertise, but I'm more relying on the bodies providing the expert information. So I'm sure you're familiar with the members of that climate action body. I believe some of them are published in Nature magazine and other very well-respected journals. Are you saying that those members are all got it all wrong?
In essence, but I think that it's not I wouldn't say that they're misguided. I think there's a lot of inertia. 8.5 was taken as the base case in 2014 as a business as usual case. In retrospect, it's not a business as usual case. We have many nations following the climate Paris Accord, and so things are much better than they appeared in 2014. There's just been basically an impetus to keep going with that case, but it's not a solid case for planning, would be my recommendation.
Okay. Have you been a part of those discussions, those committees, or that give guidance?
No. I mean, my area is actually subsurface modeling. I'm an oil field engineer, so
Okay.
I've got 40 years or 45 years of modeling, so I'm very familiar with the concept. My gripe has been that there's a tiny incursion in the detention basin on our lot. If you take two feet or less, that incursion goes away. And so I've been intently studying, well, is 3.2 feet valid? And I come to the conclusion it's definitely not.
Yeah, Dr. Hood, I appreciate it. I don't have the intellect to go with you. I did get a response from your testimony from a lot of those experts, so I'm not going to read it here, but if anyone's interested in the expert opinions, I can share that. Thank you, Mr.
I would say.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I just have a follow-up question. I think I heard you say you have a shoreline parcel that would be affected by the 3.2.
Yes, it's in McKenna Landing, and what happens is there's an incursion through a drain into the detention basin. So the detention basin captures runoff, but in the event that the sea level rises 3.2 feet, water will cross the road and go through this drain into the detention basin, and there it'll sit. If you take a 2 feet or less sea level rise, it won't ever cross the road. And so the whole parcel has been written off as open space when it's just a detention basin which is impacted. That only if you assume a cold climate model, which is very, very extreme.
Okay, so you're Malka of the road, but would be affected by the 3.2 sea level rise.
Yes, the detention basin is also uphill of the road, but it captures runoff through a drain, and if the drain were blocked off, nothing would go into the basin anyway.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions for the testifier? Okay, seeing none, mahalo for your testimony.
And thanks for time.
Okay, next person would be Dick Mayer, followed by Mike Moran, and then Leahi Hall.
Can you hear me?
Yes, please go ahead.
Thank you. I feel very sorry for the planning commissioners because I think you've been given a very difficult assignment because of what the department has done to you, with you. They were required to provide the CPAC with a financial model that would indicate the costs of what the changes would be and what the plan would involve. The Maui County Code requires 3 elements: a capital improvement element, a financial element, and an implementation schedule. None of that was really given properly to the CPAC, and they, at the very end of their work, recommended, and I'm going to read now, in Appendix H, at the very end of the CPAC, infrastructure report, we require that our planning department prepare a detailed infrastructure report indicating the infrastructure that will be needed to implement our South Maui Community Plan and include estimated costs to provide the infrastructure over the next 20 years. And that would include things like highways, intersections, traffic lights, water sources, transmission lines, reservoirs, schools, water tanks, etc., and many other things. That should be available to you. You're looking right now today at individual projects, whether it be Pilani Promenade, Wailea 670 was mentioned, the R&T Park was mentioned, all individual projects. But what you do not have is a cumulative effect of all of these projects. And I think that's why I feel the department has shortchanged the CPAC and now you in trying to make good decisions for the future of South Maui. I think we all know that South Maui already is stressed with infrastructure. They have a shortage of water, as the water department now weekly puts a report in the newspaper saying that there's restrictions on some water in Central and South Maui. This plan that's before you now includes about 6 major projects and many much smaller ones. Wailea 670 with 1,100 units, McKenna Resort with going to be coming up with 1,000. They're going through the EIS now. Leadcore 975. Lipoa, now the R&T Park, 1,250 units. Pilani Promenade, we don't know the number that would be involved with this residential or combination, but let's say 400 or 500 units there because that residential area could be filled with apartment buildings. And then finally, the big North Shore Mauka, which has 600 acres,
30
potentially
seconds.
2,000 units. I'm asking that you require, before you go further, that you require the department to give you an infrastructure study of the various components, the costs, and do not put in to be determined on all of their things that they now have in that appendix that's in the plan, because it's unreliable. It should be a range for each of those items in there so that the community and the South Maui will not have housing without the necessary infrastructure.
Time.
Thank you.
Mahalo for your testimony. Any questions from the commission? Okay, seeing none, thank you again.
Welcome, and my condolences to you all.
Okay,
I'd like to
next,
be a little bit more upbeat than that, but thank you.
I wish it would be.
okay, next person is Mike Moran, to be followed by Leahi Hall.
Aloha, Chair and commissioners.
thank you for your volunteer service to the community. You had the morning meeting and now you have the second meeting again. So you're certainly earning your keep, even though you don't get any keep. You're just doing this as volunteer. So thank you for your service. My name is Mike Moran. I am a member of the CPAC and a long-term resident of South Maui. I think first I would say that very disappointed and discouraged by the planning department's reaction to our community plan that we devoted as volunteers a year's worth of time to express what the residents of South Maui wanted. And we see so many things being flipped back at the urging of people who don't live in South Maui. Some don't even live in the state. So it's pretty discouraging to our community as a whole to say this is what we asked for, and we see all these changes being advocated. Many people have spoken about the Pialani Promenade. That's one of the main ones. Many of us devoted years to trying to stop what was called the mega mall because we didn't want that. We didn't need it and we didn't want it. And when each time when the offshore owners of the land were defeated, they just came back and tried again. So in the CPAC, we went for residential. And when it was proposed as a small town center, we asked the question, how much residential is required in a small town center? And as best as we could tell, the answer is 0. You don't have to have any. You can, you could have a lot, but you don't have to. So once you propose this, then it's up to the developer to say, well, how much are we going to put in here? Historically, they were going for total commercial. Yes, there was a proposal at one point for that 1/4 to, in coordination with Wailea 670, to put that residential requirement up there. But then that was withdrawn for whatever reason. So that's what we see is, unless it's residential, and no, it's not going to be 100% homes. You look at residential, you have other things in there as well. I too have a laundry list of things, but 3 minutes, that's the prime one. The sea level rise, yes, please stick with the guys in Hawaii that study this. Dr. Chip Fletcher has shown me to be a knowledgeable man. I follow his advice. He has no vested interest. He has no property here that he owns. Okay, thank you very much for the opportunity.
Mahalo for your testimony. Any questions from the commission? Okay, seeing none, thank you again.
Yeah.
Okay, next testifier is Leahi Hall, followed by Albert Perez, and then Vernon Kalanikau.
Aloha ka'aina ya kākou. My name is Leahi Hall, and I'm a member of Huiala Nui o Makena. Mahalo nui to you folks for your time. My comments are largely to support clarity and clarifying language in Section 2.5 and to elevate and celebrate Native Hawaiians of place. Rather than blur and confuse, and in cases potentially negate already established and well-developed State 6E process, I request your support and clear recognition of them. In Section 2.5.2, please recognize and amplify Native Hawaiian voices through noting the Kapa'akai analysis. In Section 2.5.3, please add in at the end of the phrase, in accordance with SHPD administrative rules or the 6E process. In Section 2.5.4, please remove traditionally significant views and replace with particular views from particular sites. In Section 2.5.5, please amend to recognize that in the 6E process, there's very clear language about interpretation, which covers signs. That's in Chapter 13-277. In Section 2.5.7, Please note and add, first consider alternate locations for transplant. And then when consulting and offering the wood, please consider a hierarchy of offering to go first to lineal descendants of the area, then Native Hawaiian organizations of the area, followed by the County of Maui Oiwi Resources Department, followed by Native Hawaiian artisans. In section 2.5.9, I request a reordering of use traditional ecological knowledge in coordination first with those who have generational knowledge. So coordinate with those with generational knowledge and then consult with cultural practitioners. In section 2.5.10, please reorder and place ike kupuna of the area before cultural practitioners. In 2.5.11, when wahi kupuna or other historic properties are located within a project area, erase the rest of it and just add in SHPD rules will be followed. In section 2.5.11b, erase when wahi kupuna or other historic properties are located adjacent to a project area within the same parcel require mitigation of potential adverse impacts by following SHPD
30
administrative
seconds.
rules. And in section 2.5.15, consider also the connection with Pu'uola'i, which is in the McKenna area and I'm familiar with. And then also in the sub area 5 McKenna section, there's a sentence that refers to a particular group of community members who rallied to support the preservation of the State Beach Park. I would also like to recognize that there has been a history of generations of people standing up and preserving this place. So consider amending that sentence to be genealogical descendants and community members continue to fight for the preservation, the regeneration, and the vitality of the area. Mahalo.
Mahalo for your testimony. Questions from the commission, Commissioner Lindsay?
I didn't see written testimony come in. Did you send it? And if you haven't, can you please send that in?
I can write it after this. I did not send it, and I'm just testifying here with you now, but I can write it if that's helpful.
Okay, that would be very helpful.
Yes, that would be very helpful. There, we have nodding around the room.
And I've been trying to take notes as fast as I can, and I can't type that fast.
Me neither. I can't write that fast either.
That's all the questions I have. Thank you, Chair.
Any other questions from the commission? And I guess note for you, Ms. Hall, that we are going to revisit section 2.5. We've asked the Department of OEV Resources for their input. And so we didn't actually review it yet. We are waiting for their input and then we'll go through it all together. So if you could submit your written testimony about all of this, that would be very helpful when we get there.
Thank you all very much.
Any other questions from the commission? Okay, seeing none, mahalo again.
Okay, next testifier is Albert Perez, to be followed by Vernon Kalanikau and Stacy Alapai.
Aloha, Chair, Commissioners. Thank you for your service once again. You know, I've been following this for a long time, and throughout the community plan update process, going all the way back to the Lanai and Molokai West Maui community plans, the planning department's clear goal has been to make the community plans less specific, and they will therefore be less enforceable. So the land use designation categories have now been made so vague that interpretation will be left up to the planning department, and even developers won't be able to rely on them. In response, the South Maui Community Plan Advisory Committee specified which uses that would actually be permitted in each land use category. The planning director at the time promised to get that language removed. I'm glad to see it's still there. The original land use map that they had was based on population and infrastructure studies, and North Kihei Mauka was not even on that original map. Partway through the process, the planning director at the time, at the request of the landowner, issued a new map with an additional 600 acres, the need for which was not and still is not supported by population and infrastructure studies. The CPAC was divided on the issue, but voted to support the additional 600 acres on the condition that all of the North Kihei-Mauka policies be adopted. So the planning department is now proposing to eliminate many of those policies. Similarly, the Pi'ilani Promenade was originally intended to provide industrial space to support the hotels in South Maui. In 2012, the planning director told the community there was nothing they could do to keep it from becoming a mega mall in violation of the State Land Use Commission conditions. But the community fought back until the developer agreed to stick to their original plan. The owners still want to build commercial space there because that's what they do. The CPAC was divided on that issue as well. Several members, including Maui Tomorrow, advocating for it to be designated open space because the community plan is a vision of what the community wants going forward. But the CPAC finally agreed to make it residential with adequate buffers to accommodate the cultural sites and the flooding that takes place on this land. Now the planning department is proposing to override the community's wishes and designate it small town center and eliminate the 80-20 residential commercial policy, which would allow the entire parcel to be developed commercially. Despite assurances by the landowner, it's possible that there could be no residential at all. The planning department's job is to facilitate development of a plan for the community plan, based on what the community values and based on the hundreds of hours of work that they put in, not to do favors for developers and not to undermine the will of the community. I truly feel sorry for the people of South Maui who will have to live with all of this if these recommendations pass. If you support what's being proposed, you'll be sending a very clear message that people are wasting their time participating in this process. And I'm open for questions, particularly about Pi'ilani Promenade. Thank you.
Mahalo for your testimony. Any questions from the commission? Commissioner Dikos.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Mr. Perez. I didn't catch it all, but previous testifiers mentioned something about the land use designation. You can't override that, so, but it sounded like you described something different where it had a land use designation that was overridden, or can you clarify that part a bit with the mega mall?
I think you're referring to their attorney's testimony. So there is a stipulation. Our goal throughout the Land Use Commission proceedings was to make them follow the law, which was very plain in the conditions that it was going to be a commercial and industrial subdivision. There was no mention of residential. And so I don't want to complicate this too much, but we were successful in that effort to get them to follow the Land Use Commission stipulation, the Land Use Commission conditions. And so we all agreed to settle the matter, but that doesn't mean that we would not be supportive of residential here if that's what the community wants. There would be a process where you'd have to go through, and a Land Use Commission would have to amend their land use designation. And we would agree, if the community wants it to be residential, we would agree to that. But it's really important that you realize that what is proposed is not only the switch to small town center, but also the elimination of the ratio in the policy that said 80% residential and 20% commercial. So that's what isn't being really emphasized, and I think you should take a good look at that because that's what community wants. That's consistent, I believe. I'm not going to speak for Randy Wagner, but I think it's consistent with what she said as well.
Thank you for that. And that was my second question. Where's the 80-20 reference that you said?
In that policy, in the planning department's recommendations, there's I don't know what page it's on because I just have it copied into my computer right now, but it's policy 3.5.8. Says it's the intent is to require an 80-20 residential commercial split pursuant to the small town center definition.
Okay.
And then that is supposed to be deleted.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Perez. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you for your question.
Any other questions from the commission? I'd just like to, for clarification and to put it all out there. So were you, Mr. Perez or Maui Tomorrow, part of this settlement agreement?
We were interveners at the Land Use Commission.
Okay.
Because the planning director wasn't going to follow the law, so we had to intervene.
Okay.
Not the current planning director, the old one. Make that clear. Thank you.
Thank you. No, seeing no further questions from the commission. Thank you again for your testimony.
Okay, mahalo everyone. Thanks again for your service.
Next testifier is Vernon Kalanikau, to be followed by Stacy. Hi.
Hello, you guys can hear me?
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay, right on. Vernon Kalanikau, representing myself of Kulakai. I wanted to comment on the 3.5.1. And this is the one support the establishment of a diverse stakeholder committee to guide the development of North Kihei Mauka. So that section, what I wanted to offer change is number 5, cultural practitioners. And mahalo Leahi for covering some of that stuff, because when I look at cultural practitioners, I believe I want a cultural advisor or cultural consultation. And maybe I missed this when it got in there, but what I don't like about it is because any Malahini can go someplace Hilo, UH, learn, come back 5-10 years, and then learn from one Puma and they become a cultural practitioner. So we have to look at people of the land, take it to the land generationally. So I suggest further on, and even when we talk about the 2.5 chair, when we come up with OEV department, we can touch on that kind of stuff that we got to change that. So right here, right now, for number 5, we could use Hoa Aina, Kama Aina, Pili Aina, but then again, we can come up with something better with the OEV department, because it should be those of the land generationally, or Lino or whatever, and also Hawaiian organizations too should weigh in. The other thing, I would like to make that number 1. You see, they stay number 5, yes, they last. Indigenously and culturally should always be first. That's what lacked in this community for South Maui. It was never culturally led based. It was also always expert Malahini based. So we gotta change that. Put that number 1. The other one, I supported that small town center, and I only did that because I live over there. And the thought process for me and our family on that side was, so I don't need to go more south. I don't need to drive to Central Maui to go shopping. I can get most of my stuff right there, but we're not talking big stores. Yeah, it's just mom pop shops. I can get everything that I need from the ABC store, the old Suda store. All my shopping will be at Walmart, of course, right? It's 10-15 minutes away. And also with all the legal stuff going on, that's why I did what I did. But the landowner gonna be open to expand on more mixed use on that, I believe, because I work with him also, right? You guys know that. And also when we talk in community, how much of the community is really involved? It's just 3 agencies, 3 associations. It's always been like that. So we need to expand more on that. So that's what I wanted to chime in on that part.
Mahalo for your testimony.
Yeah.
Any questions from the commission? I just want to make clear that when you say you supported the small town center, that's for the Pi'ilani Promenade area.
Yeah, the Pi'ilani Promenade, correct.
Okay.
And I have been involved with that since day 1. So,
okay, thank you.
okay, thank you.
Further questions from the commission? Okay, seeing none, mahalo again.
Okay.
Okay, last testifier I have signed up is Stacy Alapai.
Aloha. Thank you for allowing us to give feedback about some of these revisions. I have a couple of concerns about the revisions proposed to the South Maui Community Plan language. I admittedly only got to read this earlier today, so I haven't been able to do a deep dive in all of the revisions, but it appears to remove all language that would allow for accountability to the Kihei Community Association's design guidelines and the South Maui Community Advisory Committee's recommendations. And in essence, deleting this wording under the guise of being clear and concise removes the specificity that we as a community need in order to protect our intentions and hold not just this commission and the county, but the developers that we partner with accountable to enact the will of the people who've spent a lot of time on these committees and part of these associations, giving their mana'o and making these recommendations to benefit all of us and trusting this commission to enact the recommendations. So by removing the specificity and the requirements, we're allowing for lots of room for interpretation by developers to interpret the language however they see fit or however best fits their profit margins at the time. So in this case, I think the flexibility is actually a problem. And for me to get more specific, removing the language, defining what affordable is of being 30% of total income and replacing that with a range of housing types and price points. It allows developers to define what they think is affordable, and by removing that specificity, they're able to build housing to suit a range of housing types and price points, which is super vague. And on that same note, the previous language says 80% residential and 20% commercial, and that rule protects us by saying that any developments needs to be 80% residential, and removing that specificity and designating it as a small town center technically allows a developer the flexibility to develop as much commercial property as they want. For example, they could build a mall on that land and not any housing. So I think the Planning Commission would benefit from keeping that specificity in there so that it can hold people accountable and truly reflect all of the time and efforts of the Kihei Community Association and the South Maui Community Advisory Committee's recommendations. The vagueness kind of defeats the purpose of developing a plan in the first place. I also want to just say that I support the Kihei Community Association's written testimony that gets more specific about their concerns. Mahalo.
Mahalo for your testimony. Any questions from the commission? I do have one follow-up question. I didn't hear you say it. Are you a resident of South Maui?
I currently live upcountry, but I used to live in Kihei Villages and moved out of there because of the congestion.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Okay, seeing none, mahalo for your testimony.
Okay, we'll go back to in-person, Erin Mukai.
Hi, good afternoon, Chair, members of the Commission. My name is Erin Mukai of Pacific Rimland. I'm here today representing the landowner for the Maui Research and Technology Park. We've participated in the CPAC's review of the South Maui Community Plan and continue to request the Community Plan designation of Special Purpose District, or SPD, for the entirety of the Maui Research and Technology Park. We are governed by our own zoning code, Chapter 19.38, which no one else has. We're disappointed with the department's September 23rd recommendation to revert our designations to their original proposal. It discounts the CPAC's work and recommendation and our participation as the landowner. First and importantly, the Maui Research and Technology Park is a special district and consistent with the SPD designation. According to the community plan, The special purpose district designation is intended to provide for specified land uses that, due to their uniqueness or incompatibility, do not easily fall within one or a combination of the other community plan designations. Second, our unique flexibility in use is only captured within the SPD designation. We have 40 permitted uses within our zoning code. Our allowable uses are unique, like nowhere else on Maui, supporting science, technology, and knowledge in the workplace and at home. These uses are not captured within the department's recommendations. Third, the park's land use designations are consistent now, and multiple community plan designations would lead to inconsistencies and technical permitting issues. Our current community plan designation is our own Maui Research and Technology Park. Our zoning is our own Maui Research and Technology Park District. We already have a controlling plan map, which is based on meets and bounds. That's part of our zoning code and governs our uses. All this makes land use regulation clear. There's a less chance for disagreement or misinterpretation. We do not need multiple community plan designations to add unnecessary complexity. The special purpose district for the entire Maui Research and Technology Park is the best and only solution. And we ask that you not support the department's recommendation.
30 seconds.
Really appreciate the time to be here today. We did submit written testimony online. Thank you.
Mahalo for your testimony. Questions for the testifier? Okay, seeing none, thank you again.
Rory Frampton.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Nice seeing you again today. I'm Rory Frampton. I'm a representative of Haleakala Ranch and Ko'onolu Ranch. And I worked closely with Rodney Wagner and others at KCA and their design review committee to develop policies related to the Kihei Mauka growth area. The planning department has recommended changes to these policies in order to make them more clear and concise. We're supportive of that language, but we are also supportive of the specific language that Randy put in, with 2 exceptions, and we've disagreed with one of these from the start. The second one sort of came up with the planning department's language. 3.5.3, and I have this in written testimony, would require, prior to development, a comprehensive watershed management system for the whole area to be developed and implemented. Kihei Mauka is a very big area. It's 583 acres. And as stated in the Maui Island Plan and in the community plan, it's going to need to be developed in phases. So we would requiring the we're supportive of the concept of implementing a comprehensive watershed management system. However, it should be only required to be implemented for each major phase of development. Requiring implementation of the system for the entire 583 acres would create a cost-prohibitive upfront barrier to development. And we've suggested language that would read, prior to each phase of development, a comprehensive watershed management system would be designed and implemented, et cetera, et cetera. The second big concern we have is with the requirement for a Mauka collector lane from Veterans Highway all the way through Hawaiian Homes, through Kihei Mauka, and into the MRTP park to Lapoa. We recognize that effective traffic mitigation is going to be key for the success of this project and for the future South Maui residents. However, we feel requiring the completion of the entire Mauka collector before any new development is excessive. It assumes that capacity of Pi'ilani Highway is maxed out and does not take into account other improvements that are on the books that will improve capacity and efficiency of Pi'ilani Highway.
30 seconds.
And it doesn't recognize the benefits of constructing portions of the Mauka Collector Road, which certainly could be done. So we suggested language that would well, you can see it, and it would be basically as determined by the Department of Transportation. And we strongly encourage that language. And lastly, I would like to add that Albert Perez was incorrect in stating that the original department's plan didn't have any of Kihei Mauka. It had a chunk of Kihei Mauka in it, the regional plan, and it was expanded and supported by CPAC in order to provide comprehensive long-term planning for the whole area. I'm
Mahalo for
available for any
testimony.
questions.
Okay. Questions for the testifier?
Thank you.
Seeing none, thank you.
Thanks for all your work.
Mhm. Oh, hold on. Commissioner Dicos.
Sorry about that. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Mr. Frampton. You mentioned the watershed management plan should be done in phases. Like what? And you said 583 acres was too large a parcel. I know other watershed plans, I believe, are much larger than that. What size do you think is acceptable for a watershed management plan?
When we come in, the project's going to be developed in phases over many years, if not decades, and it would be enough to address each phase of development. You want to put the drainage infrastructure in first, obviously, before you come in and do the development. But we haven't specified the specific phasing yet of the project, but it would be done that would all be outlined in the comprehensive master plan, which would include an infrastructure phasing plan. And that would be addressed in detail at the state district boundary amendment and the county change in zoning processes.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Sure. Any further questions from the commission? Okay. Seeing none, thank you again.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you, Chair. That's all that I have signed up.
Okay. Last call for testimony. We have somebody stepping up here in the gallery. If there's anybody online who wishes to testify, please write your name in the chat.
Good evening. My name is Leilani Pomani with Pacific Rim Land. I have a new proposal that's not included in what you guys have now. I did submit written testimony last week. There's a parcel that is newly acquired by us, is parcel 38008005, and there's a map that's attached to my testimony. And we'd like to have that designated industrial for a community plan. There's 3 reasons, and you can read my testimony, but first it's nearby already industrial surrounding designations. And 2, there is limited availability of industrial lands, and we'd like to increase that industrial availability. We've learned a lot in this past year, and as you know, industrial lands are very limited. And when I was on the CPAC over in West Maui, one of my mantras was have more industrial land. And now you can see that that's really, really needed over in West Maui. And third, it supports local businesses as owner users for industrial companies. So we'd appreciate you taking a look at that and seeing if we can designate that parcel as industrial. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Can I ask I'm trying to match it up to the map that we have. What is the current proposed?
It's agricultural.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from the commission? Okay, seeing none, thank you again.
Thank you.
Okay, is there anybody else who wishes to testify? Anybody sign up in the chat? Nope. Okay, last call for testimony. Going once, going twice, 3 times. Okay, testimony is closed. We have now gone past 5 o'clock. I would like to give my commissioners a break. Let us have a 13-minute break. We'll come back at 5:15. Thank you, everybody. Welcome back, everybody, to our Maui Planning Commission meeting of Tuesday, October 8th, 2024, regarding the South Maui Community Plan. We are into section 3. We've closed public testimony, and we will start working our way through this section. There's been people asking, how are we going to tackle this? And my approach I have in mind is to just go in order as we've been going through the whole plan, starting with section 3.1. And we'll get as far as we can and pick up from there at our next meeting. So the introduction in section 3.1, the growth plan. Commissioners, any comments or flags? While everybody's looking through their notes, I was just wondering about the first section of the background. The population of South Maui is expected to grow between 3,700 to 6,100 new residents. I was wondering if we could put in like a reference point, like from so many thousand, grow from so many thousand people by this much.
We can. I believe that's in the first section, but I can re-put it here.
Yeah, just to put it here.
Can you tell me what page that's on?
In our draft, it's page 53. It's the very first sentence of the first paragraph. Anybody else, any comments? We can go to the next page. So there's background, growth plan objectives. Commissioner Dicos, are you raising your hand?
Yeah, I had one question for the planning department. So we often hear about the growth curves and we expect, and is that how we're planning? We're just based on the curve, we're going to build to match the curve, or is there an ideal balance, carrying capacity? Is that any of that incorporated into the planning?
The planning department needs a carrying capacity analysis, but the growth curve is just based on the historic trajectory. I will note that South Maui actually saw a decline in population in the last few years, and there's ample space in the community, in the current community plan, to accommodate the anticipated growth that was in the original anticipated growth.
Okay, and you said you have a carrying capacity analysis, or you need?
We need a carrying capacity analysis.
Okay. Thank you, Chair.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I apologize. I didn't give commissioners a space to ask questions of the department after we heard all the testimony. So if you had any questions that you wanted to ask the department, please do so now. Otherwise, hearing none, we can continue our review. Okay, under growth plan objectives, still in section 3.1, kind of the middle of the paragraph of the first paragraph. Such and such that makes South Maui a special place to live, work, and play. I was wondering if we'd add in learn, live, work, learn, and play.
Can do.
Okay, thank you. Okay, anybody questions on the community plan designations? Commissioner Tikos.
Thank you, Chair. I had one question about small town and small town centers. What is allowed in a small town center? I guess I should read it.
If you have the plan in front of you, you can look at page 61. It has some bullet points of appropriate uses.
Does a shopping mall fit?
It says low to medium density commercial centers that service nearby neighborhoods, low to medium density housing, mixed commercial, residential, public, quasi-public uses such as civic spaces, parks, schools, and churches.
Okay, so it's a bit up for interpretation.
Ms. Takakura?
This is Jackie. So the key point here is this wording about that service nearby neighborhoods. So it's kind of intended just for that area. It wouldn't be like, say, how you have in Central, some of the bigger stores that are intended to service the entire, island. So yeah, smaller density commercial centers that service nearby neighborhoods. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Any other questions on the definitions of the land use designations? Commissioner Lindsay?
On small town center, also medium density would be something like these displayed on the bot, the images on it here. Those are medium or low?
Those are medium density. It's so not Harbor Lights, but more like a 20-unit apartment building.
So that's the residential side, but the commercial side?
The commercial side would be similar in scale and character.
Uh-huh. And it could be a mix of both. So in this image of Kihei,
That is Kihei, yes. Uh-huh.
there's housing on top?
Yes.
Okay.
Kind of like Kulamalu.
Yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
I didn't realize Kulamalu had housing on top.
Okay. Commissioners, any other questions on the definitions of the land use designations? Okay, or we can jump into the community plan map and sub areas. Everybody good with that? I guess before we get too far, or before we jump into the maps, I do want to say that I intend to recuse myself from discussion on the Maui Research and Technology Park. Our I guess my business partner does work for Lipua. It's social work. So to build social gathering opportunities to build the community of people who work in the park. It's not anything to do with the planning of the park or anything like that, but I'm thinking that in an abundance of caution, I'll just stay out of the discussion unless anybody thinks that's okay.
Corp counsel, is that a Hopper question?
It's typically a corporation council question, but I think that they usually ask if there's some financial interest in this area. And so if you don't have some sort of financial interest, you should be okay. But typically you don't vote anyway, so you might be all right.
Yeah, I just won't vote. I'll facilitate the discussion, but I won't vote on the land use designations for the park. But I will say, like, almost all of my summer jobs from middle school all the way through college were in South Maui. So I have lots of familiarity with South Maui. And I would say my summer jobs from like freshman year in high school all the way through college were centered within the technology park.
Chair, this is Michael Hopper. I think it's entirely appropriate if you're not comfortable in that case to, if you want to have the vice chair handle that portion or chair pro tem, if he's not available, that's fine. Normally with items like this, we would ask for a Board of Ethics opinion. And with those, there's can be an amount of uncertainty. So if that's your thought, I think it's fine to recuse yourself just for that item and have Vice Chair Thompson or another member, if he's not available, handle just that portion.
Okay, thank you. So section 3.3.
I have a couple of
Commissioner Lindsay.
in 3.2, so on sub area Ma'alaya and Kealia, you cite the populations, but I'm wondering at what point does tourists are considered part of the population? I understand they're not like our community, but the number of tourists that there are changes the infrastructure that's needed there, and possibly, part-time residents or whatever maybe should be counted just because of the amount of use they have in the area. But is that just my own personal thoughts, or is that something that should be discussed here?
Sorry, you're looking at sub area 1.
That's just starting
Okay,
sub area 1,
yeah.
but we're given this area has lots of tourists. Should that be included? Because in my thinking, it's infrastructure and just the movement of people, how many people are needed there, or is this just a moot point?
I would say I could count the number of vacant units that are used for short-term rentals, but it would be hard to determine the number of people because they're not. Like you could have a 1-bedroom unit with 4 people, or you could have one with 2 and they're not the next week. You know what I mean? So would you like me to add the units that are vacant?
This is just a discussion maybe for the commission, because it densifies the area a lot. Actually, even though they're not technically our community services them.
Yes, Commissioner Ward.
I would actually agree with Commissioner Lindsay, and I would add to that it's also seasonal. If you put in high season, it is completely different than summertime. So I think that there is, to your point of the variance of what infrastructure needs to be there, that with high season, we almost kind of have to build, in my opinion, towards high season, because otherwise we could just be bottlenecked. Chair.
Thank you. So you think that should be written in?
Yes.
Okay.
At some way of counting, I'll leave that to you and quantifying tourists.
Yeah, Commissioner Ward.
Sorry, I thought of something else. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah.
What I would say is, just from my experience, I've also seen a shift in the number of full-time residents, specifically in Wailea, which is where I'm at, from pre-COVID, post-COVID. So we definitely have seen an uptick of more people being here on a more of a regular basis, but potentially have a second home. So they're not counted in the numbers because their permanent residency or full-time residency is in a different area. So to Commissioner Lindsay's point, I think there's some flux that we've seen specifically since COVID, but I think we need to figure out a way to kind of take that into a corporation so that we don't misguide on what we're putting in for infrastructure. Thank you, Chair.
Sure. So this is probably within like the introduction section for section 3.3 as a whole.
Maybe, but it starts getting cited. This is the population here, this is the population here.
Mhm.
And so however, it needs to be covered.
Yeah, Ms. Komkowicz?
Does it work for me to put the population and then the number of residential units available?
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm sure that it will be affected based on the Minatoya adjustment that's gonna happen too.
Yeah, I guess like there was that housing study that was done that says there's, you know, this many residential units in South Maui, there's this many vacant units, this many transient units. Maybe that could be, I know that was a few years ago, but it's some kind of read.
Or the U Hero study possibly.
I know how to pull the data.
Okay. You get where everybody's going with this. Okay.
Also sub area 1. I see that the Maui Ocean Center is cited. I'm not sure. I know it's significant to the Malaya area, but I'm not sure at what point we're gonna cite every business. Or assume it will be there forever, you know? It's one of those.
If I remember correctly, this was added by CPAC, but I don't know if that one was in there originally. I know that all those dates were something that were added, and that takes up like a third of that property.
Yeah, I agree, but like if it's still a business, you know? So should we cite, it is a large business there? I don't know. That was the only time I saw, like, there's few times that I've been citing every time we put in a business or a specific entity to govern it that's not a government entity. This is one of those cases.
Sort of related to that, I'm wondering if this should mention like the Ma'alaya power plant or the wind farm. There's policies that mention, you know, like resiliency and renewable energy and
I think the wind farm's on the other side in West Maui.
Yeah.
It's barely there, but I
but
think that's why it
the
wasn't
power
there.
plant.
The power plant is not. So you want to mention the power plant?
Yeah, I feel like it should be mentioned.
Also,
And do you want to take out the Maui Ocean Center? I'm unclear on what the
I
decision
would
on that was.
see what the commission feels about that,
Yeah.
but that seems to be where Commissioner Lindsay is going. Anyone else have feelings about Maui Ocean Center being mentioned specifically? Commissioner Lindsay was saying because it's, you know, a business, it's,
yeah, it's just, it could be anyone. Like, why did we choose? I know why we chose them, but like another business could theoretically replace them in 20 years when this plan is renewed. Or another entity that does the same thing.
Commissioners online, can you weigh in? Commissioner Hippolito?
Chair, I'm on the fence at this point, but why reference just the Ocean Center and why not the entire facility? The Ocean Center is part of the Malaya Center. So why would we central our discussions on the Ocean Center and not the entire?
Mhm.
You got other complexes there besides the Ocean Center.
Like the whole commercial center?
That's correct.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And the harbor. The harbor is in here, but the commercial center isn't. Thank you, Commissioner Hipolito. Commissioner Dicos, then Vice Chair Thompson.
I agree. I think the intent was to reference that whole market area. So I agree it probably should be changed to something else to represent the entire commercial outfit. I support that.
Vice Chair Thompson.
Yeah, I think that should all be listed together. And then is the upcoming sewage facility inside that map too? Didn't the county buy some land for there, somewhere right in there? I'm not positive on that.
There's one in Central. There is one in the works there, but it's not in the map because it's not in the map.
Does it need to be?
Not until it's there.
This is Jackie. I think it's too preliminary right now for that. That's
Okay, so instead of Maui Ocean Center, we're acknowledging the whole commercial area. Vice Chair, Commissioner Lindsay.
I would request we just remove it completely instead of acknowledging the entire commercial area, because when we start citing commercial areas, we should just cite a bunch of commercial areas. So we don't really want to go down that road of citing all commercial areas and businesses.
I think for CPAC, it was important to cite it because it's the one thing that stands out there. Whereas other places, it's a whole bunch. I get where you're going, but I just
Yeah.
mention.
I know why it's there, but I'm like, we're citing businesses. Why are we citing businesses? In this section also, on 2.5.15, there's support the restoration of Pu'uhele. Pu'uhele is in Ma'alaya area. It is not mentioned here.
So you want to add Pu'uhele?
I do want to add it, but I more have the question of why is it even specifically cited in 2.5.15? And if it should be here, I mean, if it's already cited as its own policy, then it definitely should be in a sub area description. So if we remove it from, you know what I mean?
Like if it's significant enough to be called out in its own specific policy, it's probably significant enough to be called out as a feature of this sub area.
And Google told me that. I had no idea where Pu'uhele is, so.
Back to the commercial center thing, I feel like it might be worthwhile to mention it here because it is like the only within this sub area. It's like the only other thing besides the strip of residential, and like it's like what is in Ma'alaya. So rather than maybe like, as a balance, rather than naming the Ocean Center to say, was it the shops at Ma'alaya Harbor Village?
I would say we should keep Maui Ocean Center over citing the shopping mall.
Well, they're different. They're on the same part. Well, they're in the same like triangle, but I think they're like separate things.
Well, Ma'alaya Triangle contains the business center for Ma'alaya.
Okay, Ma'alaya Triangle.
I mean, that's it is good to recognize that this is just the description,
Mhm.
what's there. It's not the legal part.
Yeah, but I don't know. It's like calling out the
it's
major like
important.
features
Yeah.
of this sub area. I feel like that is like the built thing in this area that you like see from the highway and people pass by it, and it's part of the activity that happens in this.
Another significant feature I would say is the old mill or the old sugar cane thing. But I don't know if we're even bringing that forward, so, but I'm finding that out.
Yeah, two.
Sorry, which old mill are you talking about?
Sugar cane processing,
That would be a two.
HNS.
Unene?
It's over there. Never mind. Dropping it.
I think the Pu'unene Sugar Mill is in Central Community Plan area. It's
Yeah,
in,
it's like-
yeah. It's kind of, it's on the border.
Okay.
But I'm pretty sure it's in Central.
Okay.
So we can talk about it.
We definitely.
Chair,
It's Commissioner Tikos.
can we just say the Maui Ocean Center and surrounding retail,
Commercial, surrounding commercial.
surrounding commercial?
Commercial Center? Okay, I'm nodding from Commissioner Ward.
I just want to confirm you want to add Pu'uhele and the electric plant and just leave Maui Ocean Center and the commercial center.
It's fine. I just wanted to note that I just wanted the discussion of businesses that were featuring in the plan.
Mm-hmm. Nope, yep. Commissioners online? You okay? Okay. Thumbs up from Commissioner Tikos. Thumbs up from Commissioner Hipolito and Vice Chair Thompson. Oh, on all the maps, I'm wondering if we should have a compass rose?
Should.
Okay. Oh, the sub area 1 map, should all of like the area surrounding Kealia Pond have color on it?
The area surrounding it is actually part of sub area 2.
Okay, okay. Oh, got it. Sorry. Thank you.
It is a little weird.
Also in the sub areas,
Oh,
I want to encourage the use of the Hawaiian names over the modern names, or I don't know, put those names back into use.
Which are you talking about?
On the map here is like McGregor Point is here, but I'm not sure if there's another name for it. I don't know it. There is La Perouse in McKenna that is cited here.
Can we put both just because most like La Perouse?
It's hard. It's hard once you go. I mean, you know, like you have to change it or don't.
Just change it all the way.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But that's open for discussion.
Commissioner Ward?
So I know that there is an initiative to actually do that. It's actually starting with a specific facility. So that's going to Parks and Recs for review. I'm not sure if it's been submitted yet. So I know that there's an initiative by some individuals to start that initiative. So I would support it being put into the plan. That's where I was going, sorry.
Using the Hawaiian names.
Yeah.
Okay. Commissioners online, your thoughts on using the traditional Hawaiian place names instead of things like La Perouse? Okay, thumbs up from Commissioner Dicos, Commissioner Hipolito, thumbs up, Vice Chair Thompson. Okay. And this is across the board throughout the plan. Okay. Sub area 2.
Here, I have a question.
Yes, Commissioner Hipolito.
Clarification. In each of the sub areas, are we referencing the Ahupua'a? Such as sub area 1, Ukamehame and Waikapu. But then right after Waikapu, there's Ulehunui. And after that, there's Waiakoa. Are we going to reference the Ahupua'a and the boundaries?
Good question. Thank you for bringing that up. Do you have a suggestion?
Do I have a suggestion? No, just clarification because looking at the maps, you really can't tell where the Ahupua'a ends and begins. So if we're going to reference Ahupua'a, I want to make sure that we're referencing the correct Ukemehame, Waikapu, but there's a portion of Pulehunui that boundaries the Waikapu, which I think it's part of Ke'alea Pond.
Commissioner Lindsay?
I just wanted to say that we do have the Ahupua'a on page 8 of the plan. But,
Commissioner Lindsay?
I'm wondering if we get a little bit less specific there and we reference the moku instead, so that we don't need to define those lines. I know somebody who's worked hard on this plan also worked hard on making the lines on the Ahupua'a. But in order for this, I don't know if we need to be that specific. Although I support it. If we all support it, I support going with the Ahupua'a, but maybe starting with the moku.
Commissioner Dicos?
Yeah, I really like the reminder tying this section back to the beginning, just as we talked about watersheds and the connection with everything. I think it's helpful. I know it probably gets pretty busy on the map, but I do like that suggestion to remind us all how everything's connected. Whether it's the Moku level or the Ahupua'a level, probably Ahupua'a is probably a little more resolute.
Yep.
Commissioner Lindsay, do you mean to identify them on the map or in the text? We have the moku on page 2 and the Ahupua'a on page 8, but in these sub areas, what were you thinking of? Like in the map or on the text, or?
I was thinking in the text. I didn't consider the maps.
That might.
But it would look cool. That'd be awesome if you put it in the maps.
It might be really busy in the maps, and the maps, that's what people need to reference. So we can put, do you want it in the words just where we identify each one? Just, this area does just have a Kamehameha and Waipahu. If you look in section 1, it'll show the Ahupua'a. But it'll also help with the streams and knowing what gulches run into what. So just add them.
Commissioner Ward?
Thank you, Chair. For the maps, I would agree that it would become kind of busy, but could we actually have 2 maps? One that is, one that's represented now here, so that's clearly defined, and then kind of an overlay on a second one, so it does kind of strengthen the position.
Like back to back within this section?
Correct. Right. So this would be Exhibit A, and then the next one would be B with the overlay. That way you get the representation, but you're not confusing the actual map when you have to look at it.
Mm-hmm.
So
I would love that.
Yeah. Did you all hear that online? Okay. Thumbs up all around. Beautiful. Commissioner Lindsay.
I'm wondering where these like we have cited sources on the bottom. I'm wondering at what point do you like pick out the information? Because there's so much information out there. Like when do you pick out that we're going to talk about Kulanihakoi Gulch and this specific thing in the North Kihei region? Like in that, yeah, all of them have something that's kind of picked up, but I'm just wondering if what kind of basis that is, if we want to send it to OEV resources, because that's more significant. I can see in like the sub area 5, connecting in Molokini into that, which is why you maybe cited this event and story, but all of them have so many stories and stuff. I'm just wondering how it's chosen, why it's the one that was chosen.
The descriptions of the sub area we worked on with Katanoe.
Okay, I'm just, as long as there's some sort of basis and there's lots of information.
That's that's because Pu'uala'i and Molokini are related, so that's why that's connected. Pu'uhele is the father, so there are connections throughout, and so we could make those small connections. You also don't want the plan so long that nobody looks at it.
Yeah. Balance to be struck. For the sub area 2 description, for the last sentence, the sub area has a population of 9,170 residents. Can that say like as of what year?
And maybe cite the source
Yeah.
in all of those.
Yes.
And then about Kulanihakoi Gulch flowing, well, it says likely flowed into historic wetlands near the fish pond. I swear I read a cultural impact assessment. This was many years ago, but there's a cultural impact assessment done for some project in the area. And I swear somebody they interviewed like recalled being a very small child and the Kulanihakoi running and feeding Kalia Pond. Just to say that it was actual and not likely. But I'm sorry, I don't remember which project it was, but it was something in that area. And I remember reading that and being like, whoa, that actually flowed. That's crazy.
I'm having a hard time finding it actually. Is this on page 78?
76, sorry.
76.
76.
I was reading Kalepo Lepo. Okay. It is challenging because you do want to cite a source. You
Mhm.
like
I know. It's out there.
somewhere.
I know it's out there.
It has a source cited.
Okay, is that all on sub area 2 then? sub area 3.
Commissioner Lindsay, you were asking, you can go through the maps now or you can go through them later. That's kind of when you guys are ready to discuss land use is the appropriate time to discuss it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, on that note, sub area 2 includes Pilani Promenade. So commissioners, do we want to talk about the maps now, or do we want to just talk about the descriptions? Commissioner Ward.
Just based on CPAC experience, I would suggest let's get through the text.
Okay.
So that way we don't get bogged down in a specific area. That way we kind of have the same flow and we can go back. It also gives us a little bit more time to think about some of the sub areas.
Yep, I agree with that. Thank you. Commissioner Lindsay?
I also did not come prepared to break down in
Okay.
that specific.
Okay, so we will stick with the descriptions then for now, and we can drill into maps next time. Yeah, which is actually good because the descriptions give us an overview of what is in each place. And if we can get a good foundation there, then that will help us go through the maps. Okay, so with that being the case, sub area 3 description.
Excuse me, Chair.
Yes, Commissioner.
Could I go
Hippolyte.
back to sub area 2?
Yes.
Looking at sub areas prior, or 3, 4, it referenced Ahupua'a. Subsection 2 does not reference any. I would like to see some reference.
You want me just to start each area with?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. So Planner Comquich, Commissioner Hippolito is suggesting she'll just start each of these descriptions. She will start with an overview of which Ahupua'a are covered.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay. You want Moku and Ahupua'a? Yeah. Moku and Ahupua'a? Yes. Okay. Thumbs up for Commissioner Dicos, I see. And Vice Chair Thompson. And Commissioner Hippolito. Yeah, I guess, on the note of consistency across all these descriptions, so like sub area 2 has a stated population. Okay, and this one too, but yeah, for all the stated populations, can they all say the source in the year? And then sub area 3, I'm wondering if it should mention that there's like major public infrastructure, like the police station, the wastewater reclamation facility, the R1 lines, maybe.
Yes.
Thank you, Commissioner Lindsay.
You need comments.
We'll give you time to write all that down.
Major public services and locations.
I don't know if they need locations, just so much as to say that they are in this sub area.
So the high school, the police station.
Oh, yeah, I didn't think of the high school, but all right, I guess.
I would definitely do the police station and the fires. I don't know, the schools is kind of
Yeah, I think you could say multiple schools. I don't think you need to name every single one. Because it provides a picture of the character of this sub area and what's going on in there. Commissioner Deacon, are you raising your hand? Go ahead.
Yeah, I like that idea. A lot of our policies reference proximity to schools and services, and so it might be helpful when we start looking at the maps to be able to glance at the overview and know what's in the area. I like that.
Okay, any more on the sub area 3 description?
I have a request.
Commissioner Lindsay?
The layout on this, can you have the sub area and then its map across from it?
Is it
Oh, yeah. But we're going to have 2 maps now for each one.
So if one of the maps could be across, because it's hard because we're like reading it here and then
Yeah, it plays with your brain because you have the different map that's next to the
words.
Yeah, yeah.
That's why I saw my eye.
Yeah.
Yes.
Chair, quick question.
Yes.
To planning.
Commissioner Ward.
Thank you. I know we got into like the central Maui base yard, into the tech park, but later in this, but it doesn't reference it in the sub areas that we're going through right now. Should we be incorporate, I guess this is a question to the commissioners as well. Should we be incorporating those pieces and elements into the description of the sub area? So as an example, we're going through 3 right now. It does not reference the tech park, but the tech park is in sub area 3.
Hmm. So you're saying if there's like a project district, special purpose district in the sub area that it should be called out across the board?
I would say yes, not looking at this again from, a year ago of being involved in it. It seems like we're not including components, but then we talk about areas of change later, which we haven't gotten to, but we reference specific things like the base yard, the tech park.
Mhm.
And I think the tech park specifically might be important just because of the purpose of the tech park. And I think, as just mentioned, it's connecting jobs and the school and kind of all those components to the policies. So, just a thought.
Yeah. Nope. Good discussion. Commissioners?
I definitely agree with putting in the tech part somewhere. But I'm not sure if is that a business?
Commissioner Ward?
So I would say yes, even though it is kind of a business because it's important. I think it's an important component of that portion of the community, similar to the central base yard. There's a very specific purpose for it, and it's an incubator. So I mean, there's a lot of value to having it. So I kind of feel like we want to highlight those things because it supports the development and longer future for our community.
Agree.
But I get your point on business. So I'm thinking about it. I think that there's some value to supporting the concept around why those areas are what they are.
Commissioners online, weigh in. Commissioner Hippolito?
Chair, I agree with Commissioner Ward. I don't have to repeat it, but I echo his statements. I agree with Commissioner Ward.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thumbs up from Commissioner Deacon and Vice Chair Thompson. So anything else on sub area 3 or shall we move on to sub area 4?
Chair,
Yes, Commissioner Hippolito.
I'm struggling with this one here. One of the testifiers mentioned about our cultural and traditional practices. And I'm looking so far in 3 areas, it does not highlight anything about that. I feel that one of the testifiers said that should be one of the main items when looking at in all of our projects or potential developments. So I'm a little struggling on down there and that we don't have any listing, but we do have, for example, in North Kihei, we have community events, meetings, recreational programs, but nothing referencing our cultural practices, culture and traditional practices. And I think that should be common across all of the South Maui sub areas. So I'm open for discussion. Sure.
Sure. Thanks for bringing that up. Commissioners, Commissioner Ward.
I would support that as well, and I would actually say that that should be the lead because it's really setting the tone as to what our community is and what we're trying to represent. Then we can go into all the other stuff, but it's making that the forefront.
Other commissioners to weigh in? Commissioner Lindsay?
I agree with that. In an effort to not have so much information on each description, I'm wondering if you could make like a grid and say population, just the facts. And then you could have a description including like historical use and then current use so that, you know, you can just check the population, you can check what ahupua or whatever. And then you can, or you can look at the description of the area just to ease of readability.
And consistency.
See a thumbs up from Commissioner Dicos and Vice Chair Thompson and Commissioner Hipolito. Yeah, good idea. Some kind of easy to read, consistent across all of them.
And then it's not like you have to pick it out of a 5-paragraph story or whatever.
Yeah, whether a table or a formatted text, something that's more at a glance than having to sort through a paragraph.
And it should cut down the paragraphs so that there'll be a lot.
Yeah, then you won't have to have like
But that's
so much narrative.
Thank you for what you do.
I don't think we can, I can't make any promises for the next 2 weeks, but we can work on it, right?
Thanks, Jackie.
Anyone out there with high school students, encourage them to go into planning. They can have job security working in the long range division. Okay, so that was on sub area 3. Well, I do think with all these refinements, this will make this plan really awesome. Sub area 4. Or I guess back to Commissioner Hipolito's comments, like, do we need to work on like identifying those cultural uses and activities within each one of these? Or does the department want to take a step?
On that one, I'd love for you guys.
Or we can send it to OEV Research.
Or we can ask OEV Resources and add it to their
list.
list.
So next year we'll get that back.
But I guess to help it along, maybe commissioners as homework, everybody could send the department, you know, whatever you know of in that area, and it would help the process along. Bullet points even. Commissioner, Vice Chair Thompson.
Thank you, Chair. Should be noted there in the gallery across from sitting there is the largest landholder in Wailea. And he does have some development that he'd like to do in there, along with cultural centers and bike paths and everything else. I'm sure you can't take his testimony in now, but it might be a good resource for all those things. But they're very amenable to working with the community and putting all their affordable housing inside the resort. So, like I said, it's maybe worth that since he is the largest landholder in Wailea. He's there in your crowd.
Yep. We would welcome his testimony. For sure, written and oral.
Yeah, there you go. It's Christian Chan sitting there in the crowd. Sorry, Christian, put you on the spot, huh?
Commissioner Zikos?
Yeah, I really love as a planning tool, the idea of this table, and maybe we can narrow down. But I like having the Moku there, the Ahupuas, the population, the cultural uses, maybe major streams, gulches. I know that's a lot of work. But that would be such a valuable tool to just get all of that at a glance. Maybe we can decide what categories would be important on that table.
Sure, that's a good idea. Well, so far we have Moku Ahupua'a, population, cultural activities. Should we say public facilities or public
Government
facilities,
or public service.
public services, government services? Maybe.
It's hard going down the government services.
Yeah.
I would
Major government facilities.
Major government facilities.
Education.
Education. Do you think that would fall under major government facilities? It's probably.
If it's a private school, does it?
Right. So, which we do have a private school.
That's true.
I would say that actually having education as its own little box, I think would make it easier to identify as we're looking at maps. Because I'll use Wailea as an example. We don't have any schools.
Mm.
We don't need any schools because the population is a very different demographic. So I think it would help very quickly to say no
Zero.
schools doesn't make any sense. Or there is a school, it makes sense type of thing.
Okay.
I would stick to public schools maybe. Private schools is gonna get messy.
I think we only have one.
Oh,
In-
no, there's two. There's HTA.
But HTA is
That's a charter school.
harder.
Yeah.
What is, so I have to list that?
Or do we,
What if we just said like education and it's just a yes, no kind of.
yeah, or say K through 5, intermediate, high school.
Again, we only have one area.
Only one of the sub areas has schools.
Right now.
Well,
Well,
two kind of between 2 and 3 is
yeah. Oh, wait. 3.
actually just 3.
It is just 3, right?
Uh,
I'm very surprised there's no small private schools there.
the only one I can think of is the charter.
Because there's
Charter.
charter and HTA.
There might be really small ones, but
Yeah, but
that would be a business.
No. I mean, if you just cite education and that just says,
I can just put K to 12.
or
Yeah.
public school or something like that.
How would I put it? And if you guys.
Yes.
Okay.
tell me.
Put something down and then we can chew on that. Yes.
again, I wouldn't over kill yourself on this one because you literally only have one sub area that has it.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So that, is that enough? Moku and Ahupua'a, population, cultural activities, major government facilities, education.
I put total acres,
Oh, total acres.
streams and gulches.
Okay.
I love work.
Total acres, streams and gulches. Wetlands.
I was going to say wetlands.
or like environmental features or something like that. So it's all encompassing because there's that pu'uhele as an example.
Significant features.
Pu'ola'i.
Maybe it should have a significant features section and then like the kind of specific things.
Or geography.
I feel like that is messy. It's gonna get pretty.
Okay. Can you think of something and then just,
I'll put it out there if you guys.
yes.
We're missing anything.
Yes.
Can I-
Yeah. Perfect.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you. Okay. Does that sound good to everybody as our, topic areas for each of these descriptions?
Ticos.
So,
Mr. Dicos?
yeah, public services, would that include like a wastewater treatment and utility? Yeah,
I think so. Yeah, we had major government facilities
okay.
or like infrastructure and utilities. I don't know.
I was actually just now, Mr. Dicos just said that, thinking about the fact that the R1 lines stop at the tech center, but most people don't know that. In decisions about infrastructure, that may be a good delineation to understand where
Mm-hmm.
wastewater is, where we have, like I'm drawing a blank on wells, kind of those things that kind of have impact on what decisions we might make suggestions on.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, Karen. She's kicking me under the table.
Just keep kicking, man.
Again, just an
Yeah,
idea
yeah.
that only because like I was unaware that the R1 line stopped.
Mm.
So as we learned understanding, it's going to change the perspective on what we'd want to put where. Because if we're going to add more housing in certain areas that don't have R1 lines, then we're contributing to the water problem.
Mhm.
So,
Infrastructure and utilities. Yeah. Okay. Perfect. I think we are on to sub area 4. So similar question, should this mention like, Honua'ula Project District? Or no, because it's just more residential and commercial mixed?
it's interesting you asked that because I brought that up because in one of the maps it's attached to Wailea,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not part of Wailea as far as how that subregion is defined. And I think if I remember, we just decided it wasn't that critical. If I recall, we had lengthy discussion on should it be, shouldn't it be, and I think we just agreed that it just didn't really make a huge difference.
Okay.
There is areas of change and areas of
Mhm.
stability. To really go
Mhm.
over that.
Mm-hmm.
But you want all this in there.
I'm just putting the question out there. Yes.
But it is confusing.
Yeah. I'm like, how do you reconcile these sub areas with these areas of change? Because there is that like skirting or your overlaps between them. Question for
Personally, I think
discussion.
it should be included because it creates more of the inclusivity of the wider community versus just a specific subsection. I would also propose that for the sub area 4, that it talks about that this was intended as a planned community, as a resort. I'm not sure why we didn't put that in there.
It's here, the last sentence in the first paragraph.
Planned as a resort community and this legacy remains.
Okay, I missed that.
Or maybe say like Wailea was planned as a resort community instead of it, just to make it more specific.
Because and the reason I mention that is that I think sometimes people forget that that was the intent. We might not like it, might not agree with it, but that's what the purpose was. And again, I would absolutely recommend putting all of the native information first
Mm,
and make the Wailea stuff less important. It's important, but what's most important first versus the verse.
sure. Thank you. Anything else on the sub area 4 description? Or we can move on to sub area 5. Vice Chair Thompson?
Yes, Chair, can I excuse myself? I have a small water emergency and 6 families need water.
Uh-oh, yes. Please go ahead.
All
1,
right.
2, 3, 4.
Okay.
We still have quorum.
Thanks.
Yes. Good luck with that. Okay. Sub area 5. Commissioner Dicos.
I was just, sub-area 4, is the boat ramp? Is the Kihei boat ramp in there? It's pretty significant. Or is that,
That's in sub area 3,
oh, okay.
but that's actually a really good point.
Yep, no, good point. We'll add that. Okay, sub area 4. Commissioner Hipolito.
Yeah, that last sentence. Since a place always can be found in the original name of place, the beach is abundant with fish sought by fishermen. I would like to see that change instead of saying fish because there's other
Mm.
resources
Mm-hmm.
abundant with ocean life. And instead of fishermen, because there's a lot of women who do fish today also by gatherers. Now I'm open to other words versus gatherers. But I would like to take out fish and ocean life.
Can I comment?
Yes.
This was one that was worked on extensively because it's bringing it back to the original Hawaiian name, which references a fish. So it was abundant with fish. So it's trying to bring back that sense of place. And that was the reason that's put in there and why fish are mentioned rather than ocean life.
Can I propose the Hawaiian term because it covers both? But most people know it as fish, but it covers ocean life also. It's a pretty common word also.
Commissioner. Okay, you heard
That's
that.
correct.
Okay.
Yes, that's
Okay.
correct.
So instead of ocean life, we'll have ia. Then should we have lavaia or this?
By us, I'm okay with that too. There.
Lavaia instead of fishermen. Thank you. Good comments. Anything else on sub area 4? We're on to sub area 5. Putting it out for discussion. I was wondering if this should mention the McKenna wastewater reclamation facility. private, but it's infrastructure. And it, has an effect on development in the region. Anything else on sub area 5? On to sub area 6.
For the second to the last sentence, Kione'io Bay, maybe delete or La Cruz Bay was where the first Europeans stepped foot on Maui shores. Or I proposed erasing the entire sentence. I know that bay is significant, so I would prefer that the bay stayed in, but maybe remove all of the rest.
So just mention that Kione'io Bay is there.
I mean, it's a significant feature.
Mhm.
And the history makes sense, but in an effort to put the Hawaiian first, I'm not sure of the associations with La Cruz and historical things. But open for discussion.
Commissioner Ward?
Thanks, Chair. I would agree. I think that historical piece, it's maybe interesting, but it doesn't really tell the story of what I think we're trying to communicate.
Mhm.
And I think it almost kind of distracts from Hawaiian side versus,
Mhm.
so I would support that.
Yes, in a planning context, it's not necessary information.
Right.
Mhm. Okay. I see a thumbs up from Commissioner Hipolito and from Commissioner Dicos. Rodriguez, did we clearly decide that we would send all this to Department of OEV Resources?
Yes.
I think that's probably a good idea. Yeah.
It would be nice actually to get it back in chunks so that we have at least a point to reference from them. If they can do it in that order, I'm just concerned we're gonna send them this huge file and then they have to go through the whole thing before we get anything back.
So you mean like give them one sub area at a time?
Or smaller chunks, because we already sent them something maybe when we get down back at, or, maybe two separate. So there's always a flow.
Yeah.
I would say giving it to them and having them come to one meeting where your questions are answered is probably the best use of their time.
Okay. Okay. That works. Okay, shall we move on to areas of change, section 3.4? Commissioner Ward.
Thank you, Chair. If I could ask a quick question of planning, and please don't hate me more than you do. Would it be possible by sub-region or sub-area to look at where walking paths are and where bike paths are? I don't recall ever seeing a holistic map that kind of shows that so that we can understand where there's breaks, So I think from a planning perspective, you guys can help then go, oh, wait, you have two pieces of property that aren't connecting. If there's new development, I don't know how easy that is or available, but it kind of, as I've been working through post CPAC, it's one of the things that I've looked at, and there's a lot of breaks. And I found it very helpful working together with other individuals saying, let's marry these up together so that we have a full, complete. And it also identifies where we have maybe need to have consideration to go back and revisit existing community pieces and connecting those into the newer plans.
I think there is an action that identifies this, and if not, it would be an appropriate action to get this actually done and to have it done thoroughly and thoughtfully.
Yeah.
It's not going to be done in the next 3 months.
Okay. You can note that down as a to-do. Okay.
Thank you.
Yep. No, it's a good idea. Okay. Just noting that we have about 20 minutes left. So can we start on section 3.4, areas of change, and just thinking about the write-up, the narrative? Commissioners, any points, comments, questions for Ma'alaya? Or being that we only have 20 minutes left, we can break from here. Commissioner Ward.
Hitting that over this side. One change that I would propose is that under change envisioned, it is not a transit-orient development. Unless we were to decide to change
Right.
both land designation, but it's not currently designated in that manner.
Good point.
But it's a transit-oriented area in that it supports Lahaina, South Maui, and Wailuku. So like lots of people park there to carpool to the west side. So that needs to be here at some capacity.
Maybe different words, because if you look at the definition of transit orient, it's going to be higher density, higher in that area doesn't have the capacity for that. So I wouldn't want somebody to get confused thinking that they should approve that type of development. But to your point, which was actually discussed a lot in CPAC, was it is a throughway. So it fits the description of the purpose, but not the intent of what we want from development or redevelopment.
Just building on that by way of background, like just curious why this is, transit-oriented development is used in the narrative, but not in the land use designation.
If I recall correctly, originally was proposed as transit. CPAC reversed that out because the area of availability is really small, and we didn't. And I'll say, but this recollection, I could be wrong, but I think what the thought process was that we did not want higher density and kind of clogging that all up. But it is very much a transit.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like this is one of those cases where non-South Maui residents should be involved because that alleviates so much traffic from Lahaina and into South Maui because a lot of the residents live outside of those areas. So, I mean, if I was envisioning 20 years from now, I could see a bus depot there, a large bus depot because of its location. Even though it's not desired by this community, it's Maui needs it all. He needs that,
But I
So
guess
it's
that's why I was saying maybe different words instead of using the transit oriented. Is there a different way we could phrase it that it's and I'm just throwing stuff at, but like kind of focal through point or I can think on words, but I just, my concern with the transit orient is I think somebody planning or developers going to read that and they're going to go, I can do density. And one, the space is not for it. Two, is the community doesn't want it either.
And so that's why it's on the map is small town center
Correct.
versus transit oriented corridor.
And please planning, correct me if I misspoke on any of that. We're going back.
accurate?
We're going back.
Commissioner, yeah, Ward, you're correct. So we could change transit-oriented development to say, there are other word size you suggest, like multimodal or other transportation. And we can take out the term higher density and just say a mix of commercial, employment, and residential uses. Because I do remember that the density was a concern for the advisory committee.
And the density was a concern because of infrastructure limitations.
No, there's not that much land. There's just this little triangle piece. And I think if I recall, there's a Starbucks going in already.
The Starbucks is there.
It's there.
Yeah.
So there's just not a lot of land there. So the concern was to be able to clearly say we don't want high density. That was the easiest way, was going with small town center.
It was to maintain the current character rather than have the higher density in that triangle.
Could we maybe use the word hub?
Transit hub.
Or
Transit hub. And then take out.
maybe preface it with keeping in mind Ma'alaya's current existing character, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
Chair,
Commissioner Hipolito.
yeah, if you look at the last paragraph, it does state, build a transit hub. So you might want to incorporate that with the changes in the wording. Also say multimodal paths, improve sidewalks. That's on page 87.
Yeah, at the very top.
I do agree with Commissioner Ward. But as we go through the wording, we have it listed there, maybe we want to incorporate that backwards.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Commissioner Dicos, do you have any thoughts on this? Okay. Commissioner Lindsay?
I'm not sure about the multimodal paths, because that's a relatively small isolated area. And then to connect them to other places seem challenging. Was that a consideration or?
You could have a bicycle path going. You could also have better sidewalks. There's not the best pedestrian infrastructure in the area.
Oh yeah, getting from Malaya to the rest of South Maui is like, don't even do it.
Yeah.
And that is an area where sea level rise has the opportunity for retreat. So having the multimodal paths in the neighborhood when it retreats is an opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Okay, so keep multimodal.
Spelling error, second page. Thorough, it's important for the area's residents to be included in thorough and inclusive planning process.
Oh, thorough. Okay, so department can do a little word revision. Okay.
So to be clear, you want to take out the references to transit-oriented corridor and make it less.
Mm-hmm. But still recognize this as like a hub for, you know, people coming to and from Wailuku, Lahaina, South Maui. I think that's a good point that Commissioner Lindsay brings up is like, yes, this is within South Maui, but it is like pivotal for a large portion of our island. Regional significance. Okay, anything more about Ma'alaya? I think that was pretty thorough. Next one is Central Maui Base Yard.
Question.
Commissioner Lindsay?
Is there any plans or anything to like expand the harbor? There's no harbor bettering happening.
Harbor improvements.
Harbor better.
I don't know of any.
I
Okay.
don't recall any.
And it could be mentioned in the community plan, but it's also not something that's state.
Mm.
Well, I mean, with Lahaina not there.
We'll be back.
I know, but yeah.
Like the ferry is operating out of Ma'alaya now.
Yeah, it's kind of back in the
Mm-hmm.
mix.
I guess this could mention, well, it includes a state-owned small boat harbor. I guess, was there discussion about the harbor in CPAC?
Not that I recall. The only thing really was around was about the injection wells,
Mm.
which was the big topic, and then the seawall was a big topic, and retreat. I think if I recall, those are the kind of the key things.
But that was pre-fire.
Most of the deep discussion was pre-fire. Then when we recapped, as we'll do here, those are really the only things that came up. The injection wells was the biggest. Correct me if I'm wrong, planning.
Sounds accurate.
I don't necessarily disagree in retrospect.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if it wasn't even really talked about, it is what it is.
I think if I can maybe frame why I think that didn't come up is because with the injection wells, the water in the harbor is so bad, and with the beaches getting eroded because of all of that, I think that was kind of topic of mind of what's kind of the most important thing versus any kind of expansion.
No, I'm just wondering, not necessarily expand, just making it more,
Improve.
yeah,
Updated.
multimodal transportation, because that's what it's also servicing. If it's servicing the ferries, that's
Good point.
Mm-hmm.
It would be more of a policy than a description in this part of area of change.
Hmm.
There's that desire.
if it's just coming from inside of me and nothing from the community, I mean, just scratch it.
Yeah, but I do get the ferry operating out there for now. Like that gets into how people get to and from Lanai, which is I think people ferry to Lanai more than they fly to Lanai. At least, well, residents, not vacationers. But maybe to acknowledge that, because, talking about this as a transit hub and talking about people going back and forth, residents go to shops, the beach and the harbor. I think acknowledgement of the ferry, because we don't know when Lahaina Harbor is going to get redone.
That's what I was just going to say, Chair, is I think if this is a vision, we don't know if they actually may even stay. They might actually say, hey, let's keep it in both locations.
Mm.
So
Mm-hmm.
I think the acknowledgement and even support to saying, hey, it's not a bad thing to have, I think is probably important.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, can we add an acknowledgement of the ferry service to Lanai operating out of Ma'alaya? And the Maui bus, is there a stop in Ma'alaya? Okay,
Transit, kind of the hub right now.
Yeah.
probably mentioned that also.
So one of the actions, if I recall correctly, is that there needs to be a whole study down on transportation with the buses on frequency and where they should be and locations and all that. So there, if I recall, there was an action for that.
Mm.
But I would agree that I would call it out. But for the whole South Maui,
Mhm.
there's a much larger study that needs to be done.
Mm-hmm.
When I was on the Maui planning, the MRA, Maui Redevelopment Agency, that was considered a stop for Wailuku small bus
Mm.
when we initially were talking about the B.
Mm.
I don't know if they kept it or what happened, but that was it. The original B went out to Manaya.
I know there's multiple buses that stop.
Mm-hmm. Did you have a chance to write down all those notes?
But Maui bus, de facto bus.
Okay, okay. Guess commissioners online to bring you into this discussion. Any thoughts?
I agree that we should acknowledge the ferry system. I do know MEO goes out there and pick up quite a bit of people needing help from Lanai. So I do know not only the Maui bus, but also MEO goes out there and pick up patients or to transport people to different places, medical facilities, shopping, the elderly.
Mm.
So I agree that we need to recognize that.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Commissioner Dicos, anything else?
No, I agree. I think even they do Costco deliveries at the harbor there for Lanai pickup.
Mm-hmm. Good. Thank you. Okay, we have 7 minutes until our break time. Do we want to dive into Central Maui Base Yard or shall we call it? I think we can finish. Do you think we do Central Maui Base Yard? Okay, Commissioner Lindsay wants to push through. Okay. It's pretty short. Uh, did somebody have their hand up online?
I mean, in protest, if they're okay, not. to-
Okay. Yeah. Do you guys want to call it now that we have 5 minutes until 7 o'clock, or do you want to try and knock off a little bit of Central Maui Base Yard? Okay. Commissioner Dicos can go either way. They can go either way. Okay. Finish it. We can always come back.
Question.
Commissioner Lindsay?
Was this also the area where they just recently extended their permit to
Mm.
at Rock?
The quarry?
Yes.
No.
Oh, not the quarry.
This is not the quarry. I
This-
mean, it's close.
That's more inland,
That's, I think, in
maybe.
the central.
I don't know, will they keep like expanding? So I'm like, where are you guys going? You guys going central or are you guys going?
But this one is.
Um,
Because that would be an opportunity for an alternate rubbish site and also a commercial composting facility.
you're talking about the quarry that is right next to the dump, right?
No.
No, there's it was like on the Haleakala side of Central Maui Base Yard.
That would be out of our.
Um,
I'm like 90% sure that that is outside of your community plan area that you're discussing right now.
I believe so too.
well, it's within this green area.
Yeah.
It is. So for things outside of the growth boundary, you would need to recommend that council amend the growth boundaries in the Maui Island plan and add the designation to the new area. That was not discussed and the querying is being allowed right now.
Yeah, it's a special use permit though, so they're renewing it every 5 years, I want to say. It's short. It's too short. It's more, yeah. But now they're on their like 20th year of renewal. So like it's an established.
Seems like they have a. If you guys can share the TMK, I can look it up and see what the history is. I just did not follow that particular permit. And you have 3 minutes to do.
We'll have to dig that up. I don't remember how long ago that was. Okay. I think we're going to come back to this. So give us time to look back through our piles of past applications. I bought a whole filing storage box specifically for planning commission stuff. Okay, I think we're at a breaking point. I think we got to revisit this one. Yes.
Excuse me, before you end, do you have any other questions for us to research about Central Maui Base Yard before we stop so we can bring the information back to you?
See this map thing is on this page too.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm. I know, and the other map is right next, and your brain wants to go to the map that's right there, but you like, no, that's not the right map.
Oh, here. Wahakea Quarry TMK 236004007.
Say it nice and slow.
Yeah.
236004007. It's saying Ma'alaya, but I don't know exactly.
It barely mixed inside it.
That should be acknowledged somewhere. That's going to be something in 20 years for sure.
I mean, like the edge of it's inside and the rest.
But they're expanding. They're like, can we add this TMK? Can we add this TMK?
Wait, isn't Pokea the one? Oh. Because there's the quarry that's like by Ma'alaya.
Yeah, well,
But there's a quarry that's like by Central Maui Base Yard.
I'm pretty sure this one is owned by Hawaiian Dredging, and this is the one that's coming up on Google. Because there's two on Maui that are active.
Okay, it's 7 o'clock. Meeting's over.
Yes.
Sorry.
Yes, we will come back to this one. I think we've hit our cognitive limit for meetings for today. Commissioner Dicos.
Yeah, I just want to say how nice it is to have someone from South Maui as we go through this. So, and somebody who's gone through the CPAC as well, inform us what those discussions were. So appreciate it.
Thank you.
Mhm.
All right. It's a pleasure being here. As I said, I'm quite honored, so look forward to working with everybody.
Yes, it's been good so far.
It's only day one.
Yeah. Okay, well, good job today, commissioners. Thank you for all of your thought, work, and brain power and discussions. Appreciate it very much. So it's 7:01. We will adjourn and see everybody on October 22nd.
Right, Leilani?
Bye, thank you.
Discussion with Kate, but if you are gonna do it, just do everything for the 3 o'clock.
So please check the agenda carefully for the location for the next meeting. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Ahui ho, everybody.
Yeah, I was gonna ask, well.